All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Carlisle Select Board meeting on Tuesday, August 9th. I would like to review the agenda very briefly. We have community input followed by an update from the Board of Health about the drought or water situation in Carlisle. Then the town clerk is presenting a warrant about the state primary. We're going to hopefully adopt the transfer station regulations that we discussed the last time. Eversource will be here for a hearing, or will attend in some way a hearing about a grant of location. We have some ARPA funding recommendations. We'll hear from the consultant that has done a salary study. The environmental sustainability charge is included in your packet for consideration tonight. We'll be finalizing our 2023 goals that we've discussed in the past. We have an agreement to ratify between the town of Carlisle and the police union, Local 201, town administrators report, one appointment, and review of the warrants, and then we'll be adjourning at 10. And I'd like to say before we begin the community input portion of our meeting that tonight is the last select board meeting where Steve Ledoux will be serving as our interim town administrator. And I know there's a party planned for him next week, but we wanted to acknowledge as the select board members our just real deep appreciation for coming on board, tackling all kinds of things that I know none of us expected, and really bringing a wealth of knowledge and expertise and a terrific attitude about, tackling difficult issues and getting things done. So I wanted to express myself and the board, but I think other board members may want to add a few words as well.
I guess I'll start off. It's on. Steve, normally you expect an interim position holder to kind of just let things cook along, kind of maybe keep the wheels on the track. And I just want to thank you for, in some cases, not only keeping the wheels on the track, but actually sometimes putting them back on the track. So it has been an absolute pleasure having you on board, and I want to thank you very much for everything you've done.
Yeah. Sure. I think you were a breath of fresh air. Really, kind of woke us up to things. It's always helpful anyway to have an independent person take a look at what you're doing and whatever it is you're doing. And for that reason, I was supportive of the plan with the recruiters to get an interim and not rush into getting a replacement, but get that look. And I have to say, you certainly did exceed my expectations in performing that function, and then just diving in and helping, as Barney said, or maybe Kate said, put it back on the track. And I also learned a lot. I think you bring, so much different town experience that of what you've personally done. So that was really helpful for me, because we often benchmark, we look at comparables, but it's sort of dry data, and this is real. So as a vice chair, I worked, closely with you on some things, and I really enjoyed working with you, and I'm going to miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. As the newest member, I haven't had much crossover, but what I have has been excellent. So thank you for your service.
I want to thank the board too, because you guys have been really awesome, very supportive. And, I was a little nervous when I started because I've been retired for 4 years and I didn't know if I had any chops left or not. So
yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
We made sure you had to use them.
Yeah. I think I remember my interview. It's
left,
quiet.
right?
Nothing ever happens here in the summer. It's a very quiet town. And you guys all lied to me. I understand that. But anyway, great. No, I appreciate the opportunity, and I really did enjoy myself. And you know, and I think Ryan's going to be awesome. You know, I've spent a couple Fridays with him now, and you know, I think he's going to just continue onward. So I think it's going to be really good. But once again, thanks so much.
Yeah, well,
Appreciate it.
thank you. And a very small token of our appreciation that we hope you will wear proudly as you go out to the mountains and maybe on your running expeditions, just so you don't forget Carlisle.
Oh, cool. Hey. Mark fun. All right. Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. What, you're not going to wear it for the rest of the meeting? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Wife doesn't get a hold of
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Steve. All right, I'd like to open the floor to anyone either in the room or online who would like to offer community input. Christina, I see you on the Zoom.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. I would like to encourage the select board to include one more initiative on your list of goals for this year, and that is to incorporate environmental stewardship and sustainability impacts into municipal decision-making goal that's been listed. And while I know you're attempting to keep the list of initiatives to a manageable size for the year, I think since we are lucky enough to have the guidance of Sue, our shared sustainability coordinator, and with the efforts of the hopefully soon to be created Environmental Sustainability Committee, I think that creating a municipal environmental impact review process should not be a heavy load for the select board. Completing this initiative soon can help yield a positive environmental results, especially in light of the numerous municipal and facility decisions that are on the horizon. Waiting to complete this initiative until after such large decisions are made sort of defeats its purpose. So again, I just would like to urge that that goal also be added to the list for this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Anyone else to offer any input this evening? All right, seeing none, I'd like to move on then and welcome Tony Mariano, the chair of the Board of Health. Thanks, Tony, for being with us. And he's there. Yeah, come on up to one of these mics and make sure it's on.
Green beans on.
Green means on. And yeah, in your packets, you'll see some information that we sent out. And then the packet that came this afternoon has just a brief graphic that will, let's see, did one of us, any of us get that? Did you have that set up? Could you share that?
Oh, I don't have it set up.
Zoom.
I'm not, I can do that.
All right. And yeah, so Tony, thanks for coming.
Sure.
And yeah, tell us what your current, or what your thinking is about water here in Carlisle right now.
So, I mean, as is appropriate, there's a growing concern around town. People with, you know, wondering about this ongoing drought that we have this year and how it might affect our water, you know, availability here in town. And so, you know, certainly it's an important issue, and it's something that we have to keep our eye on. Just so I kind of give a little brief announcement here. The Board of Health welcomes anyone that's concerned. We're going to have a more in-depth discussion of this as a full board on the 22nd during our meeting. It's a remote meeting, so anyone can attend. So we periodically do discuss these things. We've had droughts in the past, and we'd love to have as many people as are interested attend, and we'll have a brief board discussion, and then we'll open it up to all kinds of questions and comments from anyone that's concerned about this. Carlisle is somewhat unique. I mean, there are other towns in the state that have all their own wells, but certainly in this eastern area, Carlisle's fairly unique in that aspect, and we do pay attention to this. One thing that I can say about this year is that we haven't had any reports at the Board of Health of any people having trouble with their wells going dry or any kind of water supply issues. That is most likely because our water supply is quite different than many other towns that are putting water bans on or having to deal with this because of the dry conditions. We get most of the wells are in bedrock aquifers here in town, so it means the wells are drilled deep into the rock rather than just like a well inside of the sand and gravel and whatever the overburden material might be. Certainly, if you have a well that's in the overburden material, this kind of drought that's pretty severe but pretty short term, as anyone would remember, it was around last summer. It rained certainly every weekend, it seemed like, but we had quite a wet year, and that type of thing will recharge the aquifer very slowly. But I think it's part of why we're not seeing much of a response to this drought yet, as far as people having issues with their wells. So if you guys want to look quick, I just have a diagram that might help explain it, and it's sourced from the Canadian Geologic Survey, but there's many like this in many sources. But it shows how groundwater is recharged and what could happen during droughts. And so I guess
Sorry.
other people can't see it. Is that
No, yeah. Could you just give us 1 second? We just,
sure?
I'm not sure who is supposed to let Travis share his screen with his Jen or the gentleman behind the curtain there. So if somebody, Jen, can you let Travis share?
Or Jen can share.
Or Jen, well, Travis is ready he's got the document.
I have the document if you want, if I can share your screen.
So all we need to do is share the screen. Doesn't look like she's there. Yeah. Yeah.
She's the one who controls?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
What are we gonna get with this?
Well, I can describe it
Yeah.
if that helps.
I think we're gonna have to do it without the visual aid, unfortunately. Sorry.
In Carlisle, we have, as many people know, we have very shallow bedrock or ledge in many areas of town. And other towns, we have fairly thick overburden, whether it's sand and gravel type, like out on the eastern side of town toward the river, or throughout town in glacial till, which is a mixture of silts and clays and cobbles and sands and things like that. So when rainfall comes through, it'll recharge that overburden. It also will, wherever it falls directly on rock, will seep through cracks and certain pathways through the rock itself. Now, when many towns or municipalities have either reservoirs that they rely on for their water, or municipal well fields, and all of these are typically set in the overburden aquifer, and so this kind of drought will much more directly affect them. Okay.
Well done. Thank you, Travis.
So most towns' wells will be set up. You can see the grayer area that slopes down full of little fractures, and it has a little blue coloration where it shows there's water in those fractures. Okay, so the material on top is all soils and different types. This diagram just shows the different types that can be that you can have different soils. But when the wells are in that, we're all in sort of one big bathtub, and we all share that.
Above the silty layer, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the silty layer can act as something that can confine it or separate it. So there's a little bit more to this diagram than we really need to talk through tonight. But essentially, if there were wells in that upper area beneath the trees and that region of the diagram, or you were dealing with surface water, it shows a stream or a river here, but it could be a reservoir or a lake, then this type of drought will really affect that in the short term. And I think we hear a lot about neighboring towns or regional towns putting water bans and things like that to try to control, the use of the water. For Carlisle, our water for the most part, although there are some old wells, we have a 25-foot dug well at our house, but we've put in a bedrock well. But there are some people, I think, that still rely on some dug wells. And so that is an issue. And those are the ones we typically see going first when there's a drought. But most of the wells are in this bedrock type material that you see in the gray with all the fractures. Now, you can picture going down into that bedrock when a driller puts a well in, you could hit or miss any one of those fractures. So we're not all sharing everything. It just depends on what we tap into with our well. And there's a good long period of time when for those to get recharged when things start to dry from a drought. But there's also a good long period of time for them to get affected by a drought. So I think that's why right now we're not seeing too much trouble yet in Carlisle. And just because our neighbor may have a problem with their well, we may never have a problem. And there are records. The state keeps a record of depth of everyone's well, and the depth of the bedrock, and all those, a number of different things that can help us understand what's going on. The trouble is it's not real accurate. It's all based on drillers' reports, so it's not done by geologists. So it's not always accurate. But point is that you could have a well that's starting to run dry, and your neighbor could have one that is no problem, could supply the whole. My well has a recharge rate, so that's the rate the groundwater comes back into the well of 100+ gallons per minute. If you have something between 6 and 10, that's pretty darn good. So, I mean, you just never know what you're going to tap into. So that's a concept for people to keep in mind. Just because a neighbor might be having trouble, or a neighbor might be doing fine and watering, their landscape and doing, but doesn't mean it's going to be the same for everyone all around, because they may be in a completely different system, and that's just the way it works here in Carlisle.
So Tony, thanks. A question and a comment. So the question is, these fissures, like, I mean, you dig a well till you hit one, basically, right? Is that what the well diggers do?
Yeah.
Drillers do.
Yes, and to that point, you dig a well till you hit one that's a good one.
Right.
And then they keep going.
So in and out of the paper of that picture could be miles, right? You see a little crack here, but
oh, sure,
it could hit one. It's got a lot of capacity, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
If you hit a good one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you don't know what kind of capacity each one's going to have.
Okay. So that's just a question. Now, comment to me is, I guess this is maybe broader, and it's kind of why I definitely wanted us to discuss it at the select board in addition to the Board of Health, because, you're, as Board of Health, you're giving a pretty rational scientific explanation, but there's a social component, right? I mean, whether or not you were lucky enough to have an aquifer, I mean, I think most rational people would agree that the world supply of potable water is not limitless. And maybe it's not my neighbor, it might be my neighbor 6 miles away that's also using that aquifer, or who knows what, but it is a scarce resource. And I personally believe that the town leaders need to show leadership when leadership is called for. So my question, and maybe more to the select board, and we don't have to decide tonight, but scientific rationale apart, whether we're blessed at Carlisle to have great underground resources and people have their own wells, and we don't actually have the right to tell them what to do with their wells, is besides the point in my book. If we're in a stage 3 drought, which, the state is saying, don't be judicious in your outdoor use, et cetera, et cetera. I believe, again, I'm just making a statement, that we have a duty to kind of reinforce that as a town, and that we should all, do the collective thing, which would be, to me, the Carlisle way. So I'll just leave it as a statement. And thank you.
And for my,
I just wanted to piggyback on what you just said, David, because I'm thinking about some of the 40Bs that were shot down because neighbors were very concerned about their water. And that, if there's too many people using the water, I guess what I would like to know, because it sounds, Tony, like what you said, that's now that's more or less a specious argument.
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. I think if I can get one message across, and it's not a great message, but is that groundwater in Carlisle is extremely complex. And we can't just give one simple model and say, we'll base every decision on that. So these things need to be looked at carefully. And I think to your point, it's always good practice to be prudent about what we do with water. In Carlisle, the water we use recharges our water supply, unlike people that draw off of the Quabbin Reservoir or something like that. I mean, that comes out of there and it's gone. Okay. So here we recharge the groundwater with it. Granted, it's used up by trees and plants and evaporation in that process. So there's a percentage of it that returns, but through septic use, anything, drinking water that goes down the drain, anything, it's a much more direct but slow process of recharging the aquifer. So there's a lot of complexities that go into what our real resources are here in Carlisle. And so I think we have to consider all these things when we make decisions on how to protect our water supply in as far as developments go, or, that type of thing. But as far as the droughts, I think there's no reason to be alarmed yet with the current drought because it is a long process. And, but secondly, it's a very good idea to be careful about what we do with water and make sure that if we are using irrigation, that we have the right timers, we do it at the right times in the evening or morning, so we don't get the hot sun and evaporation, things like anytime it's a good idea to be very prudent about our water supply use.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. And I am looking forward to the discussion the BOH is going to have next week, the 22nd? Yeah. 2 weeks. Yeah. And I just speaking for myself, I think we as a select board will definitely want to take under consideration what comes out of your discussion at our next select board meeting to see if there is some additional role we should be playing in helping to safeguard our water supply. So yeah, thank you.
And just to update, I spoke with Linda, our health agent, just this afternoon, and no reports of any compromised wells at this point. So far, so good. Let's take care of our water supply the best we can and hope for the best.
On all of our other natural resources.
Yep.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tony. And Peggy Wang's here, our town clerk. Hi there. Thanks, Peggy, for joining us. Do you want to pull up a chair right here to the microphone? It's helpful to be at the mic, I think.
I'm just here actually to have you sign the warrant.
Okay. Have 2 sentences you want to say about its purpose?
Well, it's a standard warrant for an election. I come before the board for every election for the warrant to be signed and then signed by a constable and posted in locations around town. So it just lists what's being voted on, what positions are being voted on, and then it breaks it down from when they're a part of the Commonwealth or the district or the Middlesex district or the county. So
Great.
Just looking for signatures.
Okay.
So I move.
Any questions? Sorry. Yeah, please go
Want
ahead.
the
Thank
motion
you.
from the-
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I move that the select board vote to execute the warrant for September 6, 2022 state primary is presented this evening by the town clerk.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. And do we all sign it or? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you want to just start that around. Yes, okay. So it's these 6 lines here.
Yes.
We're each just gonna do our
Pick a
signature,
line,
right?
And Steve, I don't know who told you that summer is quiet here because my summer's
They all told me.
my summer's been nothing.
There you go. You got
You
a
should,
pen?
I should
Yeah.
have talked to you beforehand.
Yes,
We all just sign anyway, right?
yes.
Oh, it must have been that John Petron steered you wrong.
Yeah, he may have been the one that told me
Yeah,
Nice and easy job, no problems.
right.
I understand we might be having to have a special town election if, if the town governance puts the, motion on at the special town meeting or at the fall town meeting, excuse me, for the, town clerk to go from elected to appointed, that they want to put it on a ballot.
Oh, they want to put the question on a ballot?
Yes, if it passes at town meeting, they want it to go on a ballot. Which
Is
means that
that
we
per
would have,
statute or is that choice?
that's what they want.
Well, thanks for bringing it up because I had not heard that piece of it.
I hadn't read.
They are coming to our next select board meeting and I will definitely follow up.
Okay,
Oh,
because
actually,
yeah, I confirmed that
Yeah,
with Rebecca
okay.
yesterday, that's what they want. If it does pass a town meeting, they want to put it on a ballot. And that then means a special town election.
Which is just what you don't need.
I don't look.
Could
on-
it piggyback on the
We wait
November
until
election?
November, yeah.
Well, it would be it would most likely be at November, but remember, that's 2 ballot boxes, 2 separate ballots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That many more
Yeah.
You'll
ballots.
have to pass it October 17th. You wouldn't have enough time to put it on the November ballot. If it passes.
It doesn't go
true.
on the state ballot, it goes on our
I
ballot.
know that, but October 17th is the town meeting, so.
Yes,
November 6th is the
that's the election, so that doesn't give a lot of time to,
Maybe not enough time, right?
yeah,
I
exactly.
haven't checked
Well,
with Tom Harrington to find
yeah.
out what the time frame is.
All right, well,
So-
we'll look into that. Thanks for bringing it up.
Okay,
And
good.
gee, Steve, before you go. No, and Ryan, I know you're on. Okay, well, thank you, Peggy. I'm glad you alerted us to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty.
Honey,
Yes.
we do have a public hearing at 7:30, so.
Oh, right.
3 minutes.
Yeah, Tom and Rob, are you okay? Let's see, the public hearing, this is the Eversource hearing. We have it down for 15 minutes. Are you okay? Just because when it's a hearing, it has to happen at the time it's scheduled. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your understanding. I think I saw, is it Joanne Callender? Joanne, are you here representing Eversource?
Yes, I am. Good
Okay.
evening.
But I think we need to wait technically till 7:30, correct? Okay. I'm just trying to see if could we make the appointment for Christine Johnson Batista? That's a quick one. That's page 111 in your packet, but
Appointments, I got it.
okay.
I move to appoint Christine Johnson Batista of 1090 North Road to serve on the Carlisle Affordable Housing Trust with a term that will expire on June 30th, 2023. This vacancy is the result of the resignation of Maureen Cosgrove Deary.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, what other quickie do we have here?
Something on that.
Warrant, I mean, the money warrants. They just-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a review for folks to look through if you have any questions. This represents some warrants that David did and then some that I
Right.
because they were covered a span of time.
Okay.
1 minute.
Let me see.
Barney, we could do 1-day wine and malt license.
Oh.
and Krista Hang.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
In my report.
That's
but-
in your, yeah, do you want to jump to that one?
Sure.
Okay,
We received a request from the Carlisle PTO for a 1-day wine and malt license for the 2nd annual softball tournament and family carnival, which will be held on Banta Davis Field, October 1st from 2 to 6. Chief Fisher has approved. I recommend select board approval as a licensing authority. A police detail be required. I think you've seen the proof of insurance. It's in the packet. They've also requested to put up a banner promoting the tournament to be hung from September 10th to October 1st. I recommend approval, but I think in the future, we may want to have board may want to have a policy on banners because usually it's like a week or so in other towns. So.
Oh, that they're allowed to be up or notice. Oh, that they're allowed.
Like this is a couple weeks. So.
Okay.
3 weeks, but as long as nobody else comes along, you're okay. But if somebody comes along.
Yeah. Okay. And one clarification, Jen and I chatted about this afternoon. So the police, the report there that talks about I'm just trying to find it, where it talks about what the police are requiring is they do not require a detail for this. That was a mistake that got checked off.
It was on the
It does not.
application.
Yeah, the police chief.
Watch those softball guys. I don't know.
Yeah. And I do know that Deepa Chungi, the PTO chair, is on. Deepa, we need to move on to the hearing, but if you have just a quick comment, please proceed.
I do. I'm so sorry. So the banner is actually for the playground build. So that's why we requested it to be up so long. So we can get volunteers to join the build, and it'll stay from, as early as this week all the way to the end of the build, the community build, which is September 25th. So it'll come down then. That's why the lengthy ask for this to be up.
Is that clear in the motion?
Well, there's no motion written.
There was no motion.
Well, I'm sorry, you're, yeah. What did you?
Read it, but
Yeah. Let's see, one day. Yeah. Oh, I see, promoting the tournament, it says, but it's actually to promote the playground build. Gotcha.
I'm doing double duty today.
Yeah, and this says from September 10th to October 1st, and those dates are not correct. Is that right, Deepa?
No, that is not correct. So it would be from as early as tomorrow or Friday to September 25th.
So we'd have to do this today if we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. So if we have another meeting, we can have it again in 2 weeks, but that's fine. But we're doing our best to get volunteers. And so this was just one way to get that up and running. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem.
I don't see it. Does anybody else here on the board see a problem with, so we'd be saying August 10th through September
25th.
25th?
Yes.
Is that right, Deepa? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
so I'll make a motion for that we approve a one-day wine and malt license for the second annual softball tournament on Benta Davis Field on October 1st, 2022 from 2 to 6. As we have already seen that Chief Fisher has seen the application and approved it. And do you want two motions?
I think we can do them together.
And approval for hanging a banner starting August 10th through September 25th, promoting the tournament and the castle build.
Promoting the playground build.
The castle build.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries.
Take back all the nice things you said about me.
That's right.
Oh boy, give me that hat back. All right. Thank you very much, Deepa.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So let's move on to the grant of location for Eversource. Welcome.
Good evening.
Oh, hi. Yeah, there you are. Hi. Sorry, I was just finding you again on the screen. Thank you. Yeah, please tell us briefly what you're looking for.
Sure. My name is Joanne Callender, and I am here representing Eversource Energy. And we are seeking a grant of location to install approximately 10 feet of conduit into Acton Street. And this work is necessary to provide underground service to 63 and 75 Acton Street in Carlisle.
This is the.
All right. This is page 16. Any members of the board have any questions? We have a motion in our packet.
You
Oh,
wanna
did
look at
I?
the-
Sorry. Do I need to officially open the hearing? Yes, I goofed. Okay, my apologies. So, I guess I don't make the motion. Someone else has to make the motion to open the hearing. Is that right?
No, you can just open the hearing.
I can
You
open.
just
Okay,
announce it,
sorry.
open the
All right, so I am opening the hearing for the consideration of a grant of location for Eversource.
I think, yeah,
Then,
because it's
Joanne-
a hearing, you can actually ask the people that are on the Zoom if they have any input, because that's what we're
Because it's a
hearing.
right, got
It's
it,
a public
got
hearing.
it. Thank you, thank you. All right. So, thank you, Joanne. And is there anyone on the Zoom call that has a question or comment they'd like to make during this hearing? All right. Oh. No. All right. Well, seeing none.
I have
Okay.
a couple of
Yes,
questions.
Kate.
So looking at the drawing, it looks like it's a very short, here's the scale. It's like under 20 feet, it's like 10 feet in outside of the right of way? Or
It's
into
10
rather,
feet of
inside
conduit
the-
from the pole that's in the public way.
It's inside so there's about 10 feet inside from.
Right,
19
because the
feet.
pole itself is in the public way.
Got it.
We're coming from pole 19/52.
Right. All
And
right.
yes, the 10 feet of conduit will extend from that pole.
All right. I guess my question also is then, it doesn't extend much into the roadway though, does it? I mean.
It does not. You're absolutely right. It does not, because the
It's
pole
still in
itself
the
is
10
on
foot-
a grassy
10 foot
area.
Grassy area, okay.
Yes,
So there won't be any digging and asphalting of the
Paving.
road.
correct.
Okay, that's mostly what I wanted to ascertain. Because we, if there were, we do require a bond for that.
Right.
All right.
All right. Well, if there are no further questions, yeah,
Okay,
please.
I'm, unless there are any further questions, I move to close the public hearing.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. And now we can
Now,
consider the
move-
motion.
I move to approve the petition and plan submitted by Instar Electric Company doing business as Eversource Energy for the purpose of obtaining a grant of location to install approximately 10 plus or minus feet of conduit in Acton Street. Said work is necessary to upgrade the existing underground electric service to 63 and 75 Acton Street, Carlisle.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. You have a good evening. All right. All right. Then, yeah, we're back to our Transfer Station Action Committee. Yes, Tom Bellata is here as the chair, and Rob Perry is one of the members of the committee.
And Christine's on Zoom, I think. I
Oh,
see.
great, yeah,
Great.
and Christine Lear is also on the Zoom. So, Tom, yeah, I know we've already discussed this once, so this is
Sure.
just a final review.
Yeah, a month
Yeah,
ago when we brought this forward, we did not have Gary's support. I did speak with Gary in the interview period, and we now do have his support. The issue really was the one we talked about, which is the scrap metal. And actually, you had a fairly lengthy discussion with Gary about that. And the issue really wasn't so much the regulation, it was how scrap metal is to be categorized. Currently, scrap metal is placed in what is called a swap shop area, and therefore is accepted by the proposed regulation as it is today. And TSAC, even dating back to TSTF, has had a position that we'd like to see a separate bin for that, maybe take it out of that area. Gary has never agreed to that. He's been against that from day one, and for a variety of reasons. And but we just decided at TSTF not to put that in the final report as an action item, but something we'd look at again. We have been looking at again. Gary is aware of that because he does read our minutes quite in detail, and basically had a lengthy discussion with me and actually convinced me that my position on that may be wrong. I've been a very strong advocate of having it been. He had some very cogent arguments, and it's certainly, in my mind, at least a gray area. At this point, I'd probably even lean to agreeing with Gary that it ought to stay in the swap shop. So basically, the agreement we have is regulation as is fine.
He wants TSAC not to recommend a bin for the scrap metal, which he would not, agree with anyway. He'd separately disagree with that. And TSAC has agreed to take that position. Going forward, we may revisit it again. And if we do, we'll try and get Gary's concurrence. Personally, I don't think we're going to. I think his arguments as to why it should stay the way it is are pretty cogent. So that's where we are. And that was his issue. He has no problem with the other three regulations of the 5 cubic yard. The thing I want to clarify is last time I think I might have misled you on enforcement a little bit. So I want to clarify that. This regulation applies to all users. And our belief is that our enforcement for the direct depositors is where it should be. That is, we provide the support they need to recycle. The regulation states what they should do according to state law, and 80% of them, at least, they're doing it, and we have generally good adherence. They aren't using vehicles larger than they're supposed to be, so they're behaving well. And the state specifically says we're not expected to inspect bags from direct depositors, and no one does that. So that's the only other thing we could do. So we feel our enforcement for those 1,600 folks is fine. The enforcement problem, which exists today with the current regulation and will continue to exist, relates to the local private haulers who are using vehicles in excessive size and who are not recycling and in violation of state law. It's not that we believe that that's okay to continue indefinitely. We don't. We'd like to see them come into compliance. The current thinking we have is to try and work with them over the period of the next year to bring them into compliance, to help them get their folks to recycle, do what they're supposed to do. For example, these folks are supposed to offer recycling bins, not allow certain, they're not supposed to just do whatever you want, yet it's kind of like a bypass for recycling, which is not acceptable. And then we have to deal with the truck size issue. One of them from our observations is not using trucks bigger than pickup trucks. So they're actually in compliance with that. Two are using dump trucks and things which have too much capacity. But our intent is to bring them into compliance over a year collaboratively. And if we can't do that, we'd probably back with a recommendation that we have to consider not allowing use of the transfer station. So that's kind of our thoughts on enforcement. There's really no other enforcement issue that we're aware of.
Are you planning to do follow-up surveys, or how are you going to monitor that? Or I know you'll talk to them, but
the thought is basically not just to talk to them, but to actually come up with some ideas to help educate. They have about 200 clients, and to help educate those folks as to what the law requires, and then to require that they do some things. We haven't discussed the details of this. We're going to do that after the October launch. But the kind of things we think about is, when we recycle, we know, for example, that the volume of the recyclables typically exceeds the volumes of the solid waste. If you look at folks with curbside pickup, they have 2 64-gallon containers. From my own experience, the 64-gallon recyclables usually is top full, and the solid waste one is often 2/3 full. And so when someone brings in a truck, which is 95% solid waste and 5% recyclables, they're not recycling, period. So there's several things we could do. And we haven't discussed the details, but one, we might have some situation where you bring in a truck from the transfer station. We're going to make a spot check where you partition the truck. Half of it's got to be recyclable. Something like that could be one vehicle to assure that they're doing it, because we can't expect every bag. I mean, that's just not practical. We're going to educate we envision putting together an educational flyer to be given to the clients, explaining what state laws and what they're expected to do, so the clients do understand what the requirements are. Hopefully with all of that, the other thing I'd like to explore is perhaps we can actually help them understand the business trade-offs if they would have took their trash elsewhere, dispose of it, commercially as the commercial haulers do, because that ultimately probably the best for the town of Carlisle if that happened. So we'll look at all of that and basically try and help them move forward so that they continue off their service. And if they're able to meet the recycling and truck size requirements, then I don't think we have any fundamental issue continuing to use the transfer station, because then they're playing by the rules like everybody else. The problem right now is they bypass the rules, and that affects the environment. I mean, the commercial haulers do offer single stream recycling, and because of that, their clients are pretty much forced to recycle because they have 2 bins, and very few people pay for an extra trash bin. So, but the local private haulers are getting away without doing that because they don't meet those requirements. So that's basically our thought process there.
Can I ask some clarification on that, Tom? So you just said something, the commercial haulers offer single stream, but not here.
No, the Orifice Recycling, which serves Carlisle, is a true commercial hauler. They take their trash outside of town. They don't use the trash.
Oh, they don't use our trash. So,
That's
and
right.
that one, like if I'm a customer of them, I single stream recycle in it.
Correct. And they provide you with 2 bins, and they adhere to state law. I mean, these folks actually directly have a state law requirement. They're supposed to do certain things which they're not doing. Orifice does.
Right. So these guys, so if a commercial hauler that operates inside of town, or a hauler that
Uses our
uses
transfer
our
station.
transfer station could not cannot in our system offer single stream bin because it
Correct.
wouldn't work unless they
Correct.
took
It
the
is
time
sorting.
to sort it out when they
That's
get
right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And so, so that's part A. So then going back to the previous comment you made about working with the haulers, and I agree with doing that, but what we're saying is that we're going to allow them to violate our own statute for now, right?
As we are currently. In other words, we're not going to just wake up on Monday morning and say you have to stop.
No,
doing
but
business.
we should acknowledge that, they
Yes.
should acknowledge that we are allowing them a grace period,
Yes.
There
that
is
they
a-
are in violation and we are aware that.
There is
they are.
another facet of this, and that is we currently do not permit local private haulers. The Board of Health has jurisdiction over local private haulers as they do septic haulers. They do permit septic haulers, but they do not permit local private haulers. And if we were to allow it to continue, I think we should in fact have a permitting process.
So that would be your recommendation is to
Yeah,
go.
and the kind of things you'd want to do there is you'd probably have a nominal permit fee, a couple $100 like we do for septic haulers.
Okay.
You'd require them to sign up and say, we are adhering to state law and we're doing all this stuff, and provide an annual report of client base and that kind of stuff. So it'd be a set of things you'd want them to do to make sure that they're.
So is that, I like that. Is that something that are you called it TSAC now? What do you call it?
TSAC.
TSAC is prepared to work with the Board of Health?
Yeah,
on?
I've had a preliminary conversation with the Board of Health. They're open to discussion of that. They do acknowledge that. I mean, they're basically are the official town.
I don't
board
think they ever met a permitting process they didn't want.
Well, they are the official town entity that's recognized by the DEP as.
I wish Tony was still here, but.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my last question, going way back to the beginning of your
Yes.
discussion, could you just summarize the pros and cons of the metal by the swap shop and separate, like
Sure.
why did Gary, why was he so against it? What did you think it was?
Sure. Currently, scrap metal, but there's two aspects of scrap metal. Currently, we don't really educate the public as to what can be recycled.
Right.
And that we're going to do because we want them recycling that to get it out of solid waste. And so that's going to increase the amount of scrap metal probably in that area. But basically, scrap metal comes in several forms. It comes in reusable items. For example, someone might have a working lawnmower, a lawn spreader, which has some metal, okay? Would you rather have that taken apart by the DPW using labor and stuck into or have it reused by someone who needs a spreader, okay? Right. So clearly you'd rather have the reuse. So there's clearly some of the scrap metal you'd rather have reused than scrapped. Even the case of the copper, the quintessential example here is a copper pipe. Yeah. Okay, one of the most valuable metals, and it's not stuck with anything else. And Gary's argument is this, okay? When people bring folks to the swap area, they're not doing a financial transaction with the town. They assume that there's something they don't need and they're passing it to another resident, and that's it. And so his argument is even for the copper pipe, you had a couple extra copper pipes, you chose not to use them, and you just throw them at the dump. At a trash station, somebody else takes them and is going to use them. How is that different from taking a printer or so his feeling was that if you start doing that, now you're going to put on me how I'm going to explain to folks what you can take and what you can't take. And there is another aspect, which is labor. Every night after the transportation closes, the next morning, a bunch of guys and machines tear all that stuff apart. Okay.
So I guess I'm missing that piece of the equation. It's clear to me, like what you said, like if I drop a copper pipe and nobody takes it, the guys will throw it in some recycle bin. That's easy, right?
Correct.
But the lawnmower that nobody takes, what happens to it?
The transfer station staff do just what they call deconstruct stuff
to
recover scrap metal, and some stuff does not have to be constructed. You can just throw it in the truck. Right. And what happens is, the cleaner your metal is, and
more money you get.
The more money you get for it. And last year, I think the town, like 2019, the town got $10,000 of scrap metal, so it's not insignificant.
And that metal is another. I'm sorry for the question, but that gets commingled with cans and things, or is it its own? It's its own thing.
No, cans are directly brought to a recycling material handling facility. The aluminum cans and all that stuff. This is other metals.
It's a separate bin that only the transfer station
where do you put
staff
a coat hanger?
Use. Well, the coat hangers actually
metal one.
You'll see that in that picture. Coat hangers actually go in the aluminum.
That's what I've been.
That's right.
In the can bin, right? The little stuff goes in. Okay.
Yeah, go in there. But
that was always my understanding. But now
folks do not know what really can go there. For example, it can be painted metal, rusted metal, shelving with plastic inserts, tools. If it's metal, that's where it belongs from a recycling perspective.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And so again, folks may choose to take something, a lawnmower, a copper pipe, and just like to take a printer. The other issue is snow removal. Gary does not want another bin there because he's got a nice you know, he's got that all figured out, and it is a problem. I mean, you start putting bins and you work around that.
Are we ready to consider then the motion? All right, who'd like to do that?
I
And you
move
can-
to approve the updated transfer station regulations as presented on August 9th, 2022.
Is it as presented now, or as in the packet?
In the packet, yes,
You didn't really present it.
right.
As presented in the packet on August 9th, 2022. All right, is there a second?
I second that.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries.
Right, thank you. There was just one other thing we said we'd also talked about quickly, which was the sign, the town sign. We had discussed the town sign.
Yes.
And our thinking is consistent that we would like to do that. If at all possible, we would like to do at least the sign outside the transfer station itself in conjunction with the launch. If that, not absolutely necessary, but it certainly be nice.
And so the idea is that the committee's proposing that the design, the style of the sign that's out here for town hall is what would be, some version of that would be used for the design for the entrance to the transfer station.
Correct. And also that'd be financed outside of the DPW budget or however.
Right. Right. So I think we'd probably say bring back a design. That's typically what we would do before we approve something. But then in general, I think we're in favor of that notion. Makes sense?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I'd like
So
it if you fix the road too.
and maybe cut down
In fact,
some of
I
the
prefer the road to be fixed than a new sign.
Fix the which, what was that?
The road.
I
the entrance to the transfer station.
Call it the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Exactly, your car goes.
Yeah, the roller coaster. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's a lot of, it also collects a lot of sand at the end. So since I have an electric car with a lot of torque, I end up spraying a lot of sand getting out of there.
Yeah. All right.
I will go up and do that. Then.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, just let us know when
Hey,
you have something
Tom,
ready.
One other question.
Sure.
I forgot to ask, sorry, is there something in the reg? So I get it that the transfer station employees disassemble lawnmowers and things and put the scrap in, but is there anything in the regs that says they shouldn't be putting it in their own trucks and taking it somewhere?
Actually, the reg doesn't address that. And I asked Gary about that. His position on that is exactly the opposite of that. Gary basically said that non-residents, if he's aware of that, are not allowed to take anything, but he will allow residents and employees of the town of Carlisle to take stuff.
Okay, but we're silent as to that.
We're silent. And
should that be part of, should we?
TSAC hasn't discussed that particular issue. Personally, I think that's fine, but.
I'm fine with it too, but I'm not necessarily fine with it being silent. So I'll make a personal request of the TSAC that in next year's, whatever you're doing, if you believe that and you agree, I think it should be memorialized. I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
because some people think it's a bad thing, right?
I know,
and
that's right.
There's nothing to say.
And if it was clear that,
Thank you.
All right. Thank you both.
Thanks so much.
And Christine, thanks a lot. We really appreciate all the work you're doing and we look forward to the launch this fall.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Bye, Christine. Bye, Christine.
All righty. So we're back to item number 6, which is the ARPA funding recommendations. I'll turn it over to Kate.
There, you'll see in your packet, there are 2 motions. But before we get to those, I wanted to explain that and Joan is here. Joan?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Joan Ingersoll.
Hi, Joan Ingersoll, and the head of the count. Oh, I've got to get the new name, don't I? Council
Well,
on
not
Aging.
till August 22nd, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. But anyway, Council on Aging. Thank you,
Okay.
Joan, for being here.
She explained to us that although when they did a poll about people wanting psychiatric or psychological counseling, a lot of people said, yeah, they'd be interested. And then we funded it and she put out the program and nobody, I think two people, did you say, or 4?
Now we have 4 now.
Okay, 4 people signed up. So we seem to have a lot of extra money in that pocket. On the other side, we had some another amount for nutritional support, and they are rapidly coming up to the end of their resources on that. They plan to look for other grants as well, but wanted to know, if the select board would be okay with kind of just transferring 15,000 of the funds that are not currently being used for the mental health part, put them to the nutrition. We don't want to close up the mental health part altogether, because there's quite possible that the 4 people that are currently in the program will talk to other people, and it might just be slower getting up off the ground. But we do need the support for the nutritional aid, and that is, people are not hesitating to look for that. So that is the ask for the first motion.
Do you want to put that motion on the floor?
Okay, I'll go ahead. I move approval of increasing the coronavirus fiscal recovery ARPA funding for nutrition support for seniors in need project by 15,000 to 25,000 project total, and decreasing the ARPA funding for online mental health counseling project by 15,000 to $15,000 project total. And I just want to also let you, the ARPA committee recommends this as well with a 3-0 vote.
May I have a second for the motion?
Second.
All right, any
I just had a
discussion?
question
Yeah.
quickly. How about approximately, or how many are using the nutrition support for seniors? Is that?
We have 17 people that are using it every week, and we're delivering about 50 meals a week to people.
Great.
And Joan, what kind of increase is that? Or-
When we first
or is it-
started, I think we had like 12 people. And then more people heard about it, asked about it, became known to us as people that needed nutrition support. And some people take 3 meals a week, some people take 4, sometimes somebody takes a week off. But this will get us through the entire fiscal year, which should give us time to go to some other sources and try to, get the funding to keep it going, because it just seems like people are really enthusiastic. We've done a couple of surveys and people have said, excellent things, that it just, not only giving them more food, but it's just saving them so much money, because, when you have 4 meals a week that are paid for, that really makes a difference on a week-to-week basis for people.
Yeah, yeah. All right, good. Thank you. All right, if there's no more discussion, I will ask for a voice vote, please. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously.
All right, and the second motion, as you know, we have ordered new tables for this room, and the other major user of this room is the COA. They wanted to have a different flooring. This carpet is difficult for people in walkers. The chairs, the stacking chairs that we have currently are very uncomfortable. And they're starting to show their age and they're stained, and, so COA wanted to have permission and funding for changing the floors and ordering new chairs for the room.
And I think we also benefit from it too, because my understanding is the flooring we're looking at will help the acoustics of this room as well for people watching at home.
Yeah.
What kind of flooring are you looking at?
It's called luxury vinyl plank. It's something that has some cushioning so seniors can exercise on it, very smooth, and it does help with sound. And other COAs have put it in and been very happy with it. And it's used in a lot of senior centers, community centers, things like that. So it seems like the best product. And Kate and I actually looked at a sample and picked out one that would match the trim in the room. So, we're ready to go.
Good. All right. Let's see. Did you make the motion?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
So I move approval of the expenditure of coronavirus fiscal recovery ARPA funds not to exceed $12,500 to replace Clark room or town hall flooring and purchase new stackable chairs.
Is there a second?
ARPA also recommended this with a vote for 3-0.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a point. I'm really pleased about it. And I want to say, there's been some chatter on social media, and don't comment on social media, but I want people to know that there's been maybe an focus on this big table and where it goes and why it's here. And it's a nice, you know, old style, like a bank is an old style building. Nobody banks in a old style bank anymore, right? So there was a time where this room, I think, was mostly a meeting room and, you know, a big hefty table and carpet, you know, that was the way like meeting rooms looked. But we have to be flexible in this town. And this space is now a multi-use, multi-generational space. And, you know, that's again, to me, the Carlisle way. I mean, we haven't yet and may never get around to developing a community center. And so we have to use all the spaces we have to maximum effect. And by the way, that's environmentally sustainable, right? The building's here, it's heated and lit anyway, so it might as well be used. And so in keeping with that, we first looked at the table and whether we could get a more configurable table, which we are getting, and I'm looking great forward to that. The biggest reason for that really is you can move it out of the way quickly when you need to repurpose the space. And now we've gone on to, and then Steve, with his leadership, we looked at some of these antiques that we had floating around, and we're going to find homes for those, again, to make more room. When we upgrade the AV, which will also have its other effects, it'll also be a smaller footprint. And then finally, and now we're at, let's do something about the floor that makes it more usable. So I think those little things in combination are going to make a big difference to a segment of the community who relies on this room for other things than meetings. So I applaud, you know, the work that's been done. And that's, I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
No, I'd agree. I think that was well said. I'm thinking about that. One other point that I think was made about this particular table is that you can lay out plans and so forth, but the new configuration will allow things to be, tables to be put together. So you'll also have that ability. So, you know, aside from the historic significance of this, but this is not being lost, it's just being moved. So
it's only going upstairs. So you
Right.
can still lay out your maps
you can, right?
if you so desire.
Yeah. No, I think this is a good, that the table is a good example of trying to meet everybody's needs,
Yeah.
keeping a historic object that has meaning for a number of people, and also trying to make this room more usable. So I think it's an excellent outcome. All right, well, let's go ahead and take the vote then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries.
Just have one last comment about ARPA, and that is if you turn over this motion sheet that I gave you last tonight, you'll see a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I gave it. Here's
Here's yours right there. It's on the back.
Spreadsheet. This is a list of all the things that you guys have already approved. I just mostly wanted to emphasize that the total ARPA requests approved total now $584,755. Total ARPA money is $1,569,859,000. $859, and the total ARPA money remaining is $985,000 and change. And we also gave you a little breakdown of how we've allocated so far the contingency funds. We gave a little administrative support, $5,000 in administrative support added to the rent assistance, because that needs actually to be administered. And so we thought that was a legitimate place to put those funds, or take those funds from. And the conservation land signs were $854 more than they had expected. And so that's the other place that we've so far spent some money of our contingency funds. So there's still $24,000 of it.
And that's above the 985. That's in addition to
the
left hand.
No, that is part of the request. That's part of the 584. So
Okay.
no, yes,
It's in there. Okay.
it's in there.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
All right. Excellent.
Thank you. Very good.
All right. So we are now on item 7, which is the salary study that's been conducted by Human Resources Services. And we have Sandy Stepchinsky. Did I say, was I close?
Very good. Excellent.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for being with us tonight. And
Thank you.
we have the information you provided in our packet, but we'd be happy to hear your presentation.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me, members of the board, the select board, and also Steve. First of all, I'd like to say that our company has done comp and classwork for Carlisle. Oh, I think going back decades. We've done several studies for you. So when Tim called me and he said he needed an update, of course, we were very happy to do this for him. So the purpose of this study was to validate and just to update what you currently had. It was not a full-blown study with the position analysis review or job audits and updating the job descriptions and interviewing employees. It was more looking at the market, because the market more recently had changed so much, and to see how the positions fell to the market, and also if they were still appropriately aligned for internal equity purposes. So this is very typical, and many municipalities do these updates. They'll probably do the big study, every 7 years, and every few years later they'll do an update. So we wanted to, and also since the last time the study was done, we have a new law in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Employment Pay Act, Equal Pay Act. And that was implemented in 2018. So we just did a check to make sure of the equity. So we wanted to assure internal equity, external competitiveness, it provides you with the same methodology and ensure that there's compliance. You all have a copy of the report. We surveyed a number of communities. These are your benchmark or your peer communities, and we looked at Acton, Bedford, Billerica, Boxborough, Chelmsford, Concord, Dover, Groton, Harvard, Lincoln, Wenham, Westford, and Weston. So, and they were all very forthcoming and giving us a lot of data. And the positions that we studied, of course, are all the non-union positions. And I believe, there were probably about 40, 50 plus or minus titles that we studied for you. The whole salary analysis was FY22, but then we also projected an FY23 salary schedule that is in your packet. So the attachments include, the first attachment that you see in the report is just to give you an update of how the salary increases have been occurring with regard to merit, salary structure, COLA, and other increments throughout Massachusetts.
Hold on 1 second, Sandy.
Can we share screen?
We don't, which page are we on?
We're on the first.
We're on page 36.
Page, yeah, would you like to share screen and I can bring it up?
Yeah.
Sure.
That would be good.
Do I have the, okay, I'll just do share. Let's see, I think share, okay. And then let's see here, I should be able to just go right here. I'm happy to, and I'll open up the report. Okay, can you all see the report?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's all, yeah, thank you for letting me share. Okay, so I will go to the first item that you see is, we through the Economic Research Institute, we're able to get some statewide data on, what the market has been doing. This is the last couple of years. So it just shows, all industries, and it does have, other, all the specific categories of what the structural increases have been, for many types of organizations and industries and
Sandy,
nonprofits. Yes.
Yeah, if we could pause between each slide so we can absorb it. So when you're
Sure.
finished with your explanation, we have some questions
Sure, sure.
on that
Okay.
slide, on that slide.
On
First
this,
slide.
on the first slide?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure.
So maybe,
Yes.
I mean, we see percentages, I don't know, against what, year over year? I don't know what those are. And they have a bunch of categories, columns, and then the second part of the question is which line or lines of these would be applicable to municipal employees?
So we'd want to look at all industries, okay, as the first one. And so this is just saying that on average, the personnel budgets have been moving 3.2%, the salary structure 2.3, and the intervals of 12.
What does
and the
12-month intervals? Is that what that 12 means?
That's, yes, exactly.
Every
So-
12 months. Okay.
So like a year. So some are a year, some are a little less, some are a little bit more. And then it breaks it out also by general positions, professionals, and executives.
Yep.
So you can see that. So while you can look at all industries, there are other jobs that you can also still relate to some of your municipal jobs. So for example, construction might be related to public works, as well as electrical equipment. Utilities could be water and sewer. So there are, there are engineering and other nonprofit and others. So there are a couple of different categories that you can look at. And this is just, a blanket throughout the state, all industries, just to give you an idea of what, has been going on in similar type, industries. So when you go to the next graph, again, this is through the Economic Research Institute. We're looking at salaries going over 120,000. Okay. Whereas, kind of like the bulk of where many of your jobs would fall. And you can see Carlisle falls basically in the middle when you compare it to Boston and, the United States, much, a lot higher than the United States, but below Boston in terms of the cost of living in Carlisle. The next chart shows all the market data. Steve has, the town has all the detailed data. This is the summary. And in the way that it works is for each position, we look at Carlisle's data, the comparable data points. So that means how many matches that we had for the data. So we may have surveyed, 10 or 12 communities, but on the minimums, we had 6 matches, and on the maximum 9 for this particular position, administrative assistant. And then we look at the minimum of the compensation average of those organizations that we surveyed, and also the maximum average, and then the range, the median, the 75th. And for Carlisle, when I was working with Tim, he wanted to look at the average. So that was what we structured the new plan on. So that's what all this data is. This is your, we tweaked it a little bit. We added a grade 15 that you didn't have before. And then we brought it out to FY23. This is your FY23 salary schedule. I believe you got a 2.25% COLA for increase from FY22 to make it a FY23.
Hey, Sandy,
wait, what?
Sandy,
Yep.
can I back you up? So back to the chart of the positions, the prior chart to this one.
One with the yellow header.
Yeah.
Those. So just, it's very interesting data. There's a lot to absorb, but you have a few positions where even though I think we have the position, I didn't see a max or min, like the finance director, treasurer collector. nothing for Carlisle is shown, but we have those positions. And fire chief says NA.
That's because it's a contract.
Contract.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's a, if
If
they
it's a
might,
contract, it's not listed.
if it's a contract, it's not listed. If it's no, if it's elected, it would be listed. If it's a contract, it's not listed. Some of the jobs, there were a couple of jobs I think that changed, right, Steve? Like the planning director, the planning job.
Town planner, correct. No.
Yeah.
The
But
planner.
I'm particularly homing in on the finance director / treasurer collector. I mean, we have one of those.
She's a contract.
She is a
Yes.
contract?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All right, never mind
Yeah.
then. Oh,
So
I see. We have it above. No, that's, I
yeah,
see.
I
So
see it.
line
Yeah,
28 is what we have. We don't have line 20. I see. We have a combined.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of weird because.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we collected the data. If you see finance director, treasurer, collector, I was given the data. And then we also surveyed it separately too, because a lot of towns don't have it combined quite like this. So we wanted to make sure we had enough data. So we surveyed it both ways.
Okay.
And then we
I
came up,
understand it now. Right.
yeah, and then we came up with a hybrid for the town. And you know, and it is you know, it is different, but that was a good question, Steve. And I think you know, if there's
Sandy, this is Barney. I've got one more for you. I just want to I want to be sure. Well, it's the yellow heading chart. So I just far out to the right, the farthest to the right, the percentage higher, lower than average. So if I'm looking at you know, the number 21, the COA social services manager.
Yes.
So that position is 16.4% higher than
the minimum is 16.5 than the average minimum.
Okay. And then the minus 2.9% below it
lower than the average maximum
represents it's lower than the average max.
Have a tighter range. Is
okay.
So this is a good question. This is a variance. So it's really just to show how it compares to the market with a variance. It doesn't mean that you deduct 16% or add 16%, or if somebody is below by 8%, you add 8%. It's just to see how the variance, how it relates to the market statistically. Now, this says it's high. It could be that there's, you know, this is where you really have to look at the jobs. We didn't do the job analysis, but it could be somewhat unique in Carlisle, a unique program. So maybe the market data was not the best match. I don't know. And then also the other thing too is you have 2.9 below at the maximum. So it would fall in the range, you know, anyway, you know. So the other thing too is if a job is 10% above or 10% below, we consider that to be within average. So we only, our antennas only go up if it's over 10%, and obviously 16% is high. So so I would say, you know, yeah, when you look at the data, it looks like, yeah, you're paying this position well, but there could be an anomaly. There could be something. Yeah. So, yeah.
But I would say, just commenting that David Modell here, that when you have that situation where our minimum is higher than the average and our maximum is lower than the average, it just means we have a tighter band. We're inside the bigger band of the averages.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If they're both negative or both positive, then I would be more concerned that our whole range is a little bit off. But as long as it's higher variance on the minimum and lower positive variance of the minimum, negative variance of the maximum, it just implies we have a tighter band range. That's it.
Yes.
So inside the band, we just.
So if you look at some of the others, for instance, the next three,
we overpay. That one says we overpay. And if you go to a negative one, like 25, we underpay.
Yeah.
But again, I take Sandy's point, you know, 10% is kind of in the noise. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and Steve is right about a tighter band, and sometimes that's an advantage because people get to maximum faster. Yep.
Yeah,
So-
I have one last question about these.
Sure. Oh, no, please. I'm glad you're asking questions.
Okay, because, you know, so it says Carlisle, let's just take line 43, because I happen to have that one on my screen. Staff librarian, Carlisle, 28.93 is the minimum, 33.42 is the maximum. It's
Staff librarian, you said? What number?
Staff librarian.
Staff librarian.
43.
43.
43. Okay, so staff librarian.
The other direction.
It's all the way, it's almost, it's the last
Oh,
page.
I see it. Okay, here it is. Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. You know, what my question is, when you're doing your percentages and higher and lower, where do we compare the total compensation package? Because we may be higher, you know, 28.93 may be 6.4% higher than average, but we may be paying lower than average benefits. And so I'd like to know how that all gets integrated.
Sure. Let me just that I have something for you in here. I have to move ahead to show you. We
Okay.
have something called the comparison chart. So it looks at
The orange one.
the current, what your minimum, your maximum is. And
Okay,
then
I
what
see
the
it.
averages, and then, you know, how it would, so what we do is we take all the data and we kind of rank it, and we, you know, we do some spot rating, and we kind of group them, you know, and we see where you are currently grouped, because you already have a plan and what might need to move a little bit. And that's how we kind of translate it. We look at the average. So that percentage, don't get too concerned about it. It's a variance. If it's, you know, the one that you talked about, the staff librarian, the top and the bottom, neither one were over 10%. So I
not, understood that. I just, what I wanted to know was, how do I look at those percentages? What's included in them? Is it only the hourly rate, or was it the entire compensation package?
Oh, it's only the hourly rate. This whole study is only the hourly rate.
Yeah.
It's not the total. No, it was a salary survey. That's what it was, to update. And the salary schedule always is based on the base salary. It doesn't include benefits or anything else.
Okay. But it's important for us when we're going out to recruit, to not feel that we're paying them so wonderfully well necessarily, even though their salary looks good, you know, that people are shopping their entire benefit package as well, you know. So,
oh, yes. Yeah. No,
Right,
absolutely. Yeah. This did not include, it didn't include the benefits analysis. That would be a separate, and sometimes one can play off the other. So if your salary is, for example, say your split between your health insurance is not great, but your salary is really good, or vice versa, you know, that's kind of something to discuss, you know, when you're hiring. So let's see, so this is how we group them together. So for example, so this group here, starting with the administrative assistant to the Board of Health.
Where are you again? Oh, I see. Number 2. Okay, got it.
That group on I want to call it the orange chart, because it has orange bars. Yep. So the range we put it on was 26 to 30, say. So, and then when we came up with the average of this group, it came out to 24-30. So that's how we kind of fit them into the plan, and also with the rating. There were some jobs that did move. We added the 15th grade, and there were a couple of jobs, I think, in grade 10 that went to grade 11. There was a little bit of movement with some of them. You know, I don't want to really, you know, point out exactly any employee or anything, but there were some positions that did move. But overall, your compensation plan was not that out of whack. And I think because it's been well managed over the years, the biggest thing I think was, you know, fitting the people up at the top you know, and also you have the new town planner, you know, and then, you know, so this was, you know, basically, you know, it was sort of like validating what you currently have to see what adjustments. So I would say that it was tweaked, but it wasn't a total. And here's the classification plan, so you can see what changed. I put it side by side so you can see exactly which jobs, you know, changed and so forth. And those were, so that's a, you know, that's where I am with that. I'm going to just go back.
Where did the transportation operator go? It was in 2.
Oh, do you want me to go back? The transportation operator was, let's see. Transportation.
No, that's current. Where did it?
Current, oh, current.
Oh, it's in 5?
Yeah.
Oh, it went all the way up to 5. Okay. Well, I did notice that it was one of the really poorly paid ones. So I guess it had to be paid better.
Yeah, and also, yeah, Tim had given us, you know, any updated job descriptions that they had, you know, in his database he had given us, because over the years, I think things were updated.
So that was one of the ones that did.
So, yeah, so this is the sort of summary result of all the previous graphs in terms of trying to adjust these classifications and grades going forward.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Some of them really jumped.
Yeah.
You should bear in mind, Kate. You should bear in mind, Kate, I haven't done the math, but the steps are finer at the low end, like grade 1 and 2 and 3. And so if you move from a 2 to a 5, it sounds like a lot of jumps, but it's kind of less than, I think, I don't know, but you know, 10 to a 12 or something.
$1.
Dollars, right?
Yeah.
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 And obviously we would want to, you know, do more analysis of this. And Ryan, I'm sure this is something that you'll want to dig into once you're on board. So, but this is definitely information.
Well, to Kate's
that we
point,
need
total
to-
comp, this is a great start, great data.
Yeah.
And you got to layer in total comp.
And
The
then
joy of working in Carlisle, that's got a esoteric benefit.
Yeah.
That's
Psychic income.
psychic income. Oh, that's a good one, Travis.
I think we found our new HR.
Psychic income. Okay.
Psychic income.
yes. All right. I like this overall. I think
Yeah,
this
it's
is
great work.
still, you know,
Very
we're trying to do
nicely
right
laid
with by our employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helpful to know.
Thank you.
My suggestion would be not necessarily for the board to take any action
No, I
tonight, but
wouldn't.
I think Ryan's got to dive into it. You know, the other question is how you roll it out.
Right.
You know, it's a pay and class plan. Town meeting approves the pay and class plan. When do you bring that up? So, you know, Ryan and I have spoken a little about it, and I think he really has got to get his teeth into it.
I think this is an April town meeting
Oh, yeah,
item,
definitely.
not
Yes.
October one.
Right.
So Sandy, do you recall the last time we did wage and class here?
Oh.
In Carlisle, oh
Yeah.
it was a while ago. I want to say back in 2014 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's
Uh-huh.
almost 10, it's almost, wow, we're going into 23. So yeah, so it's
9
almost,
years.
yeah. And Tim had asked that I just do an update, a survey. I mean, I think, you know, maybe, you know, I don't know when you would do it, but he felt that the job descriptions were okay, but you might want to look at the job descriptions just to be sure. You know, that was not part of, this was a very abbreviated assignment. So it was more of a salary survey. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Sandy. Really appreciate your work.
Well, thank you. And Steve, I'm glad I got to see you, and I hope you have a good rest of the summer. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Sandy.
Good
Bye.
evening. Thanks.
Bye.
All right. So we are
I
on
read all the whole methodology thing, and then I got to those
compare side by side.
charts, and it's like, what the heck? What am I looking at? What's this?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look
All
at
right,
you,
we're on-
right on time.
Yeah. Look at that. We're
Right
on
ahead
to
of schedule.
item 8, which is the Environmental Sustainability Committee charge. And I believe,
here
yep,
comes Christina.
Christina's on the call, and Bob wasn't sure if he could make it, and Sue was on earlier. I know she's double booked. Yeah. So, maybe between me and Christina, we can do justice to the work of the group. So, I did an initial sort of draft, got feedback from Sue Thomas, our sustainability coordinator that we share with Westford, Bob Zog, who was on the previous energy committee, and then Christina, who's been very involved in the master plan and wants to participate on this committee as well. So we took the goals discussion that the select board had and looked at the master plan. And so the basic mission statement is here that we came up with. Maybe I'll just highlight that basically the core of the mission is to develop a townwide environmental sustainability work plan. And just so everybody understands, we're not calling it, even though in the master plan it's called environmental stewardship, we went with environmental sustainability for the name of the committee because the land stewardship committee really didn't want there to be confusion between the two groups, and that made sense to us. So there's 6 bullet points here, but just note that it says the work plan will include, but is not limited to. So first was to develop some very specific goals based on the Carlisle master plan that are achievable with timelines and a focus on year 1. And then this is something that Christina had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, but to develop an environmental impact review process for all town decision making. And then looking at grant opportunities, also zoning code changes, and anything that might be considered under municipal, agricultural, residential, or commercial sectors, and with an emphasis on collaborating with the appropriate town staff and the appropriate boards. 4th is an annual operating budget and a plan for long-term funding, because as we know, this sustainability coordinator is a grant position that runs through this fiscal year.
Grant writer keeps on writing grants.
Yes. And then we particularly wanted to say the outreach and coordination with other town boards and committees, as well as working with regional groups that have some of these shared goals. And finally, community education about environmental sustainability, including residential programs that are available to help residents make similar decisions and behavior changes to reduce their household environmental impact. And that the tentative timeline would be a work plan and a budget would be presented to the select board in the fall of this year. And that the other point here is that short-term, low-cost sustainability efforts may be initiated prior to the work plan completion with the approval of the town administrator and chair of the select board. And then if you look down below the membership, the notion is that 10 voting members plus or minus. I don't think we're not thinking it has to be a fixed number, but we were pretty clear that, if you get bigger than 10 or 12, it becomes kind of unwieldy. And but if you get too small, then you don't have enough people to do the work. Carlisle residents who support the mission, Sue Thomas as our sustainability coordinator, as a non-voting member through FY23, other possible resource people who might be non-voting members, and then a liaison from the select board who would be a non-voting member. The term would be for 1 year to begin with, so ending on June 30th, 2023, and then going forward, members would serve a 1, 2, or 3 year staggered term.
Why? Why 1 year to begin with? Why not stagger?
Why not stagger it now?
Well, our thinking was that you get the group together, you develop the work plan, and then you see people decide whether or not they want to commit to once
Give
that's
them an out.
done.
You give them an out if they don't like it.
Yeah. So that was the thinking, that you, because for some people, they may be interested and then they get involved and they see what we're doing and they may say, well, I don't have the time to continue this, but I want to help shape the plan.
Of everybody.
Yeah,
You can always resign.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. On the other hand, that's how we did the initial transfer station group, and then had those roll over into staggered terms, for the continuation. But that was the thinking.
I guess I would also recommend an odd number of voting members,
Mm,
so you don't get splits.
uh-huh. You don't have a tie,
You don't have
5-5 tie.
If you have a tie, it's usually an indication you're probably not doing it right. So I'm not sure I'd worry about that. 10 is a lot of people though, but you're thinking there's a big workload. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then the committee would report back to the select board at least once a year and be responsible for writing a report on its work for the annual Carlisle Town Report. Yeah, Christina, do you have anything you'd like to add or emphasize?
Not really. I guess I'll just mention 10 people does sound like a lot, but this committee sort of spans, it encompasses a lot. Sustainability is not just energy and carbon footprint. It also involves the ecological side. And so, although it seems like a lot of people, I have a feeling that it will sort of get divvied up in various subgroups possibly. So it's not all just focused on energy related issues.
So do you envision, like assigning liaisons from this meeting, from this group to, let's say, a liaison to the municipal facilities and, so that they're having input and reporting back?
Absolutely. I think communication is key, and the attempt is to sort of break down the silos and also to sort of eliminate some of the redundancy and some of the work that's being done, and just to have better communication across all environmental and all pertinent committees. So I think facilities would definitely be a pertinent committee. So absolutely, yes.
So that would come under your outreach too, and coordination.
Yeah.
I think that's a great suggestion. I want to use that to reflect back on comment that Christina made at the public comment, where I'm going to garble it, but I think, Christina, you were asking if the select board would add basically municipal review or review of goals into our goal. And I would say, sure, except I think, we're not like the boss of the town. I mean, we're leaders, but we can't really tell people what to do. I think what I like and what I hear here is, let's let the committee get started. Let's let them figure out what the goals and the metrics are. I absolutely encourage, yes, of course, we will have a liaison into that board, but what Kate just said, the outreach, that they go to these other committees and start to educate them and get them to start thinking. We can pontificate and say, well, municipal facilities committee, you have to think about what kind of roofing you use when you, yeah, sure. But it's better if they're in there, like having that discussion when the roofing discussion comes up, right? And starting to institutionalize that.
I think that's great, being on the municipal facilities committee. We've talked about that actually at our last meeting, and how, these decisions, we are using, environmental impact as a criteria, a thought process as we're evaluating. And we know, I shouldn't say we, but the board has already started to evaluate that, because we know this is an important, thing that the community wants to see. So, but to have that liaison or input would be good. I have a question though at some point.
I just one more, and I'll yield the balance of my time. I think once a year is,
he gets an hour, we all get 5 minutes.
Right. Once a year is too infrequent at the beginning.
Yeah.
For regular.
Okay.
And that
Well,
way
this says at least once a year.
No, but more than once a year at the start.
Uh-huh.
Every 3 months, I'd say.
Not a problem.
Yeah. So the last sentence, will report back to the select board 4 times a year to begin with, or 4 times a year for.
You really want to do that, or just say regularly?
Why don't we just say at least, or, yeah, regularly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I hate to put, I
know,
hate to
'cause then-
codify things that can't be done, or
Right.
that don't,
Right.
You understand that we would love to see you every couple of months. You asked to get on our agenda, we will find a slot for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and I note that Sue Thomas is on the call now. Hi, Sue. We did explain that you have you had to be in 2 places at the same time, 2 different select boards meeting at the same time. So we'll see if we can work around that in the future. But thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So all right, so that's a simple change. We can change that, take out at least once per year and put in regularly. You had a
Yeah, I
question,
just had wanted to
Travis.
ask, I mean, I think this is a great start or even, and everyone, you want to have an impact. So I can understand that's why the purpose is to, have something that you're going to have produce something out of it. I was just wondered though about, you have in there short-term, low-cost sustainability efforts may be initiated prior to the work plan completion with the approval. What are some examples? Like what'd you have in mind when you were put that in there? Or maybe.
Well, one thought I had was, something as simple as, which we did a while back and we haven't done in a long time, is the town had purchased with transfer station funds, home composting buckets, or not buckets, but systems. Yeah. And then we bought them at cost, and then we sold them at cost to any town resident. That's really simple and low cost. But Christina, did you, or Sue, do you have another example you'd like to offer?
Well, I think along that line, rain barrels might make sense this year.
Hey, rain barrels.
Well, just for, we got a cloudburst here in Westford this afternoon that dropped quite a bit of rain in my section of town, but not in anywhere else. I realize it's a different water situation in Carlisle, but that might be something along the line of the compost buckets. I think composting is very important though, and I would support if those items are not available to your residents at cost, at the state procurement cost. That's a relatively easy thing for us to look into.
I would also say expense-wise, if we start in with community outreach and information, that might entail small little costs here or there, depending on how it's done. And so that could possibly be something that we might seek permission for if it's just, a little mailer or something like that.
Well, and one idea I had was come meet the sustainability coordinator at the transfer station one Saturday in September or October, depending on how popular that spot is prior to town meeting or election time, putting in a slot there, and there might be some thing I would have for a table there, just to get people informed on the programming that already exists or connected with the town, maybe a QR code for a website, something like that, very small.
Yeah, so we definitely need to connect you with the Transfer Station Action Committee too, which has a whole big plan for a fall launch of some changes that are being made at the transfer station. So
I've been listening. It sounds exciting.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to make their next meeting.
Good.
I'm sorry that Nathan's not here. I'm wondering if he wouldn't have had a question about this one bullet about an annual operating budget and a plan for long-term funding of staff to support the committee's work. While I am not in opposition to this concept, I think all of we need to review all of our committees for whether they need more support from us. This is not something I would put in a charter. And then I would also like to discuss what we think we want to have the budget be. You know, what are we talking about, the budget?
So maybe you need to say a little bit more. I think part of the thinking here was that because we have a sustainability coordinator part-time through this year, through this fiscal year, and so wanted to have in this a goal or an initiative in the work plan that came up with a plan for how you could continue to fund staff support for these efforts. And so tell us a little bit more about your thinking about why this shouldn't be. And I hear what you're saying, that we need to do that for all boards that should have staff support, but what's the thinking about why not have it in here?
Well, because I think,
are you thinking it needs to be done on a more
I might think
overall level?
Thinking. No, I'm not.
Go ahead.
No, because I don't know what I mean.
I think though it needs to be a more holistic or a larger approach to say, because we have a lot of committees. The Municipal Facilities Committee has no support and would really, it needs, I mean, right now we have Jerry taking notes and we cannot sustain that. And that's considered as this year's goal, a high priority goal or something, is to evaluate these things. And so I think, and so I would advocate, because being on that committee, and say, well, we need that. And so I think this select board needs to review that with the town administrator, or have the town administrator review it and come up with how we should be funding these various committees, because I think that's very important.
Yeah, I agree with Travis. And I think actually it's the other way, right? As we have a goal to review all the charters,
we do.
We should be adding that to everybody's charter. I mean, everybody should, I think not all the boards, but the relevant boards like MFC should take on, this is really what we feel we need to spend to sustain our own operation, not just to spend on projects, but, and they're going to advocate for more than we can afford. We know that, but at least let's
and have it
we should be benchmarking the needs and empowering them to kind of advocate for those needs. And then, at the end of the day, we in Finance Committee have to figure out priorities and how we fit all the pieces, but we should be soliciting through those boards what they feel they need to do their work.
But is that in their charter?
Why not? What's wrong with it being in the charter?
Well, then we need to add, as you said.
Well, we're going through everybody else's charter, but we got this charter in front of us, and this is a brand new. I mean, even if you said no to that, this is a brand new committee, and we're asking them to figure out your rule. Here you are. Please figure out the rules. Figure out how you're going to accomplish the rules. Why wouldn't you say, okay, and how much is it going to cost, right?
Well, this is not just how much would it cost, but this is also,
sustain.
Yeah. And I mean, part of that is, grant opportunities that might, which gets us into another whole conversation about if a particular committee brings in revenue, right? How does that revenue somehow help support staff support, even if the grant is for some other purpose, that falls within that committee's purview. So you get the way the earlier energy committee got all kinds of funding for, the municipal lights and the change in fluorescence and all of that.
Well, it's a two-part, right? So and I actually had flagged it as to comment that it's really two different things, that what they put in one line. But I always tell my guys, at work, like, don't confuse what it costs with how to pay for it, right? Like, tell me what we have to do what does it cost to do what you say you need to do? Then let's figure out how to pay for it. So I think it's important to identify the needs, the priorities, the costs, including the internal costs, like a staff support. And then we can say, okay, how long will the grant? I'm never personally comfortable with relying on grants and one-time things as a long-term operating strategy.
No,
We really have-
right,
so.
right.
David, I agree with you. You don't want to confuse those two, but at the same time, if you put this in the charter now, it's going to be one of the only ones that has it. And so it has some preferential status relative to anyone else. And so that's
So you're
not
saying
really.
don't put it in.
Right, this,
Start here and let's move on.
I think you need to
It has to
do
be a
without and
separate
then
process
and then
that we
have
do
the
for everybody at
discussion
once.
with exactly.
I agree. I totally agree with you on that.
All right.
and Brian, I don't mean to put you on the spot. If you are on the call, do you have any comment you want to make on this? And again, it'll come to you later anyway. But partly I'm asking because this this committee is hot to go, hot to trot, and we want to get started on things. So but I mean, so anyway, Ryan, you may not be on at the. Oh, there you are. Hi, Ryan.
I'm here.
Hope it's not bedtime, and I hope you're not feeling too poorly either.
Yeah, I'm trying not to hack all over the Zoom. So I'm mostly interested in coming up pretty quick here, meeting with Sue to talk about how the staff can support the committee and how we can align the committee's goals with what Sue's working on, and then the master plan. So I'm very excited to help coordinate this activity and make sure the staff's supporting it so that it's successful immediately. So let's get it going, but also let's make sure the staff support's there so it can be successful.
I think we're all in agreement with that. I think.
Well,
I do want to say I felt very welcome to town. I've been trying to make the rounds and meet with people, and people. I found the staff to be very open and also ready to get moving, which is great.
So what I'm hearing from the board is that the fourth item, the annual operating budget and a plan for long-term staffing, should be taken out of this mission or charter for now, and that we'll wait until we've had a chance and working with Ryan to look at how we might want to address this across all of the town hall boards.
I invite all town boards and committees to make a presentation to us for what they think they would like to see for support for their committees. I mean, places, like the Historic Commission, they have an administrative assistant. It's like, where did that come from?
Yeah, right.
Right? So that's why I would like to see who has what. Let's look at where our resources are and if we can redistribute them.
I agree with that. But so again, this goal or this bullet item is two different things. So let's say that's true.
That's a good point.
But the operating budget, they got to come up with what they think
okay.
they need to spend to do
okay.
what they want.
That's true, but that's not part of their mission. That's just part of what a committee.
How does that happen then? How does it become?
It doesn't mean that they can't do this work, but it's somehow, it's not their mission. To me, a mission is a little bit broader than this. Their mission is for sustainability and, all the other things, the review, how to do the review and do the reviewing and, but the operating budget thing just is anomalous with all these other things.
I may be coming around to your original opinion, thinking that, you're not talking about funding. I was more interested in, making sure we have an equal discussion of funding on all these committees. But, having this in there, just saying, hey, you're going to come to us and this is part of what you're doing. All these committees kind of need to do that. They just haven't been tasked with it yet. So I don't know. I'm not.
Well, let's see if we would anybody like to propose other than the one wording change we did down at the bottom, which is to come regular reporting back to the select board. Is it more comfortable for you, Kate, to say an annual operating budget period? which obviously would include,
developing and implementing townwide environmental sustainability work plan. It'll include, okay, so it's the work plan will include
right,
these things.
right.
Well, you've got, I mean, let's start from the top. So you've got goals, short and long-term goals. So nobody disagrees with that. And then you got to come up with a process, which seems like no disagreement. The next one, the third one, is operational in the same way a budget is, right? I mean, that's just as granular as a budget. I don't see, if you're arguing thematically that charters should be above the fray and just like blah, 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 okay. But I think I like this one because it's granular. Like you got to do these things. So
okay,
It's almost like every committee should have that in their,
they should. I guess that's what I was trying to.
we have a goal to go through
That's
everybody's
the thing
charter.
that struck
so
me, that everybody
let's
needs
get on it.
support, and you know, so fine, just leave it in for this one, but then let's please
Well,
make sure that
that's
we
a
put it in
perfect
the
segue to the next topic.
All right. So with that one change about reporting back to the select board regularly, is the board comfortable making a motion to create the Environmental Sustainability Committee with this mission as stated?
Two more. One is, I think Travis never got a chance to say something. So
no, I did.
you
I
got
was
your
responding to your questions.
But then also at the bottom, which is not bulleted, but it's at the bottom of the bullets, a work plan and a 23 budget, which we're in 23 already, will be presented for review and approval at the fall of 22. I mean, it seems.
Well, we got to give you, the thinking was we wanted to give you something concrete for at least the balance of this fiscal year.
Okay. They can get going that quick. Okay. This will be presented. Okay.
review and approval of fall of 20 short-term work.
Seems ambitious.
May I say something? I think
Yes.
part of the rush is the fact that we have Sue for a year, and we want to take full advantage of having her part-time shared with Westford, but have it, full advantage of her abilities and her knowledge. And so I think that is sort of part of the push of trying to get this done as soon as possible and get going as soon as possible so that we can have the maximum benefit of her being here, because we don't know what's going to happen the next fiscal year.
That makes sense.
Right.
Would someone like to make the motion?
I move to accept the charter as written with the exception of replacing where is it?
Last,
At the bottom,
last
at
paragraph.
least once a year with
at least
regularly.
once a year with regular. The Environmental Sustainable Committee will report back to the select board regularly. That's my motion.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. The Environmental Sustainability Committee exists.
Members have, right?
Well, there are some people that have indicated their interest, but we didn't want to assume anything tonight. So those will be on our August 29th.
So are we
agenda.
formally gonna, how are we gonna promote that to gather?
Yeah, we're going to put something in the mosquito, and what else do we talk about?
Lynn, are you
Sending
awake?
things out to our sending things out through the network. Yeah.
And to pertinent committees as well.
Yeah.
Very good. Congratulations. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah. All right, good. All right, so let's move on to item number 9, which is the fiscal year 2023 goals discussion. And thanks to David for creating and to Jen for working on the spreadsheet and making it a one page fit on but doesn't go beyond the width of it is readable and so David, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can maybe share what you did on this.
So we thank you. We had a,
Oh, right. Yeah, we
the-
should share this on the Zoom too.
who can share? Travis was sharing.
I gotta load it up again here, but I will do that.
While we're
While you're
waiting on that, Steve, do you want to just start the first part of your report? Just review what you've got in the beginning of your report. Might take a few minutes. Yeah.
Jen's
Well,
gonna have to let me.
Travis has got a little ways to go.
Jen's gotta let me in the meeting.
Yeah,
I
Jen
had
has got to
logged
go.
out.
Jen, because
Right, okay, so first thing I wanted to mention is you may recall, we did have an executive session scheduled for this evening to deal with a grievance with the police officer. However, his attorney had requested a continuance to see if we can work the matter out between the chief and Labor Council. So it is tentatively continued until our next meeting, August 29th.
I
So,
was wondering why I had my thing listed
Right.
for 6 o'clock tonight.
yeah, so hopefully everything will get worked out. I just, since the goal setting, I know we're going to be talking about this in a few minutes, but I've been doing some kind of outreach with some consultants about regionalization, because regionalization, I mean, it's a very broad topic, as we know. And, and I really think if we put together a committee to study the issue, probably need to give that committee some kind of professional help. So I talked to both the Collins Center at UMass Boston and MAPC about how they could assist us. And, pretty much they would like, some finite direction as to, are we looking at public safety? Are we looking at whatever? Both entities have done a lot of studies. The Collins Center has looked at regional policing, for example. MAPC has done all kind of regional stuff, including IT, regional IT. I put a couple examples of some studies in there just for your own edification. No really anything to do. So in my discussions with MAPC, for example, there are some grants that are going to be coming up in the next few months, the Community Compact, the DLTA, which I don't remember what it stands for anymore. And then the Magic subregion actually has some funding available. So, Ryan and I have spoken a little about that, and but I just want to let you know that there are a lot of help out there if we want to look into regionalization. Travis is up, so I will.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
All right, David.
Okay, so we had, I thought, a pretty good goal session was it last time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we had a good goal session. I thought there was a lot of interesting conversation, and we didn't change from, first of all, Travis brought up, I think correctly, that we were misusing the word goal. There was we were maybe commingling initiatives and goals, right? So goals should be like very broad. That was a theme that came out. Another theme that came out was we should, where we can, we should try to align with the master plan. The master plan is a great document. A lot of thought, a lot of input went into it, and it actually did line up pretty well with things we were saying. So, that was, I guess, maybe it's validation that we are aligned with the rest of the town and what we consider to be priorities. So, and then we went through it, and we first of all adopted where we could the nomenclature of the master plan. So fiscal sustainability, environmental stewardship, connectivity and access, and Carlisle character. So the most left-hand piece of this chart is and then I went back through the master plan. So it was helpful for me because it made me read it on a more close level. So I used the chapters, and somehow the chapters and the goals, that one criticism I might have is the individual goals should be subheadings to the chapter, because you can't really get there without that, but they just go in order. But regardless of that, the yellow here, the highlighted yellow, is the chapter that deals with the broader topic that we also consider our broad goal. And then I tried again to pick out the specific master plan reference, which I don't know, what would you call it? Recommendation, I guess.
Recommendations.
Yeah, that lined up with the things we said were important to us this, this year. And then, so if you go from that to the right, I'm calling them initiatives, which are things within the broader goal, like financial sustainability. We would have specific initiatives. And those are the ones where I basically used my notes and tried to line them up horizontally with the reference to the master plan. There are some things in the master plan that get there without a specific goal, but they're lined up with some goal somewhere. And then I also put in bold the main goal, because we did a lot of talking, but tried to distill to some main goals to do, and we'll go through those in a few minutes. And then finally, on the far right, I thought it would be useful to, because one of our goals anyway is to be more aligned with these other boards and committees, that we should identify those boards and committees that we are everybody's a stakeholder in everything, but are should be major participants in that initiative. It's also self-serving because there's way more than we as 5 people can do. So it's a way of signaling that we're going to be distributing the work, right? Like we just talked about with sustainability. So we'll I can just keep going in terms of identifying the goals, or how do you want to go from here? That's the framework.
Yeah. Everybody understand the framework?
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
So
let's
if we
keep
say
going.
financial sustainability, the first one, basically, again, using the bold. And by the way, when I totaled it, it was like 10, I think it was 11 goals, but we actually knocked one off today, right? As we formed the committee. So, I mean, there's a few that we can, there's some low hanging fruit. Right? I just want to say, I don't like having like too many goals.
Yeah.
No.
But there are a few that are
Unrealistic.
easy to get
Right.
accomplished that will
Right.
launch, and then leverage that group to go do some things, right?
Yeah.
Which again reflects back like Christina's thing. Let go do the work and then we'll act, right? Okay. So the first one is improved and more transparent budgeting process. We haven't done anything on that yet, but that's a big goal, right? That's going to take a lot of work. But moving to the right, that's clearly FinCom, the TA, and the finance director. We got to get those people leveraged into that process, right? And then below that are the little details that came up in our discussion, like Munis upgrade and the things we have to keep an eye on, but they all clump in under that major goal number 1. Then the second one was a regionalization committee, which we've agreed we should do. Steve again is giving us guidance here, and that's something we need to set up, and then we need to get them to go start doing the things that Steve is saying. Go figure out where you get consulting work and what makes sense to work on, etc. The third one is capital plan review. I saw these cross references to the MFC. It wasn't clear from my recollection of the discussion whether there was more to, whether it was just facilities or generally capital plan. But I think, and this may be my own editorializing, but I believe we should be developing what I called here a capital capacity. I mean, we should be thinking about how much can we invest over time and stay within our sort of self-imposed borrowing limits.
I think the answer to your question, Dave, is in 7A. It's
Yeah.
because it's rolling long-term facilities plan that anticipates municipal building needs.
Right.
and things
So
like
all
that.
those
So
things.
it's the whole.
So there's a lot there for MFC to work on. Okay. And then down at the bottom of financial, I mean, I think personally, again, maybe self-serving, I think 5C, I put it in there, but I think we've been pretty good partners with the schools on working on that. And it would be roll up under that comp.
Yeah.
And then finally, the maintenance one should not be lost in the mix, right? 'Cause there's not just building, there's maintaining them. I think MFC is tackling that.
Yeah, go ahead, Kate, because you've been on. for a
Well,
moment.
they are, but they need some support. And I noticed you just gave them comprehensive capital plan review now, which is, so they're going to need even more support. Go ahead.
Well, there are a lot of things that I think we as a board need to review too, some of these committees, because there was that building committee set up, I think in the 60s or something to do specific
That would be a
things.
specific building.
Right. And so I just want to make sure there's not like crossover. I'm not as familiar as with you, or you are more familiar than I am. So,
Well, with a specific building, like when we built the school,
yeah.
there's a building committee.
Right.
That's when you've already decided you're building.
You're
a school.
going to, right.
And same, I presume, if public safety decides that the building is in the future, there will be a thing.
Yeah, and there is heavy participation of the MFC. Well, Christine Lear is no longer MFC, but she was MFC, and she's and Jerry are both members, and Bill Risso, who still is MFC.
Correct.
So I mean, that whole committee is pretty heavily MFC already.
Right.
And now they've like hired an engineer to help them. Okay, so it's clear that they can direct and they can find things that need to be looked at, but they need that that professional expertise and or staff, or they're all going to need budgets.
Right. So that's probably one of the first charters we have to take a look at.
I would definitely.
Okay. So that's essentially, let me go back to my count. 1, 2, 3. So that's kind of 3 major goals there, and they're, you know, not trivial. Those are significant, and we're going to really need to engage FinCom.
Yeah, and just one thing it'll hopefully be coordinated with FinCom, et cetera, but is the governance task force and their bylaw around the budgeting and finance, right? So that they would be in there too, I think, yeah.
So then the next category, environmental stewardship, and in this case, we kept the word stewardship as compared to sustainability. We've kind of already talked about the first one, right? To form the new ESC. So thank you. Tick. And then, but it does, if you go to the left, 15A, provide staff capacity, et cetera. So, I mean, we can't just, obviously we have to, we're making it clear. Now, and 15B is the next actually line item under ESC. We have to now staff it, right? So that's for us to do. But I would say then to go to the top of the next page and to again reflect on Christina's comments. All this other stuff that's in, you know, 15C, D, blah, blah, blah. I think let the ESC get started, you know, and then let's figure out by distilling that through what we can meaningfully do. Like as a select board, how can we meaningfully assist the process once we get them going? And on the far right, of course, everybody else is a stakeholder in that as well. And then finally, and in the same category, 17A, Transfer Station Task Force. Thank you. Ding. Goal number 2 accomplished. We sent them off with the rules. So again, we're leveraging them. They're doing a great job, you know, and thank you, Barney. So that group is also a lot of things. I don't want to underplay its importance, but I think we can, the select board can best serve the town here is empower these committees, get them started, empower them, and then we have to resource them.
Right.
That's what we should, you know, so less heavy lifting for us. Okay. Then we move to connectivity and access. And this was an interesting discussion we had because we put things in there. I mean, when I read it, connectivity and access, I read it with an IT. It's like, okay, that's about IT. And then as others weighed in on the last meeting, I understood that this is broader, connectivity in the broadest sense, right? Connections, governance, institutional knowledge. So the first major one, which we talked about maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago, is develop this onboarding process. And I think that one actually is a heavy lift for select board. I think we need to make that a thing where we work on it. Like we have to divide it, and people should be gathering documents, and we should get to a, you know, an onboarding, a training, and yes, we can leverage town committees, and definitely we'll be working with Ryan and hopefully an admin, a TA assistant. It shouldn't, well, TA admin and also I guess assistant TA, but we need to do that. I really think we can't pass the buck on it.
So it's assumed then select board is in there to your far right, because you don't really have us listed.
We're the middle column. Everything in the middle is us, right?
Okay.
The far right is who else can help us, right?
Okay.
Okay. So everything in the column, you know, the column before the far right is our goals, right? So
okay.
I'm just saying we leverage where we can, but if to just go back, review the bidding, we had 1, 2, 3 on finance, we had number 4, and I'll call it number 5 and 6, but really 4 in terms of a major on the environmental. And now our 5th one is the onboarding. Our 5th major one is the onboarding.
Yeah, okay.
And then below that is documentation, which kind of there we can get some help from maybe professional staff. I'm not sure. Then the next one, also under connectivity, is also a big lift for us. And that's to meet with boards and committees. And now we're talking about reviewing charters and amend as needed. So that folds right into the comments we just had. And then some of these are from Kate, so I assume she's going to do all this. Review town bylaws and align with committee charters. But I mean, really, yeah, I think that's something we as the leaders, and in fact, most of those boards report to us. We owe it to ourselves. Meet with them, review their charters, compare it to the bylaws. Now we have a budget piece. You know, we should really develop, as we did last year, you know, a schedule where we should pre-plan the rest of the year. We should filter in a board every meeting or something like that.
I think you're gonna have to do more than one.
Maybe more than one. I mean,
Yeah.
right. So anyway, that's a major goal. And then at the bottom, which also got tucked into connectivity, was 5B, bottom of the page, foster closer communication among elected, I'm sorry, is that the one? No, I'm sorry.
14A?
Which one are you looking for? The stuff about staff? Oh,
Before I get there, let me make a point. 14A says convene boards, you know, on a quarterly basis. So I think also in that we should, besides meeting regularly board to board, some kind of chairs meeting. We heard you talked about a chairs meeting.
Yeah.
So that's buried in the subtext of this meeting with them. So some of that we might accomplish simply by having chairs meetings and get
that going.
Just the head of the board to come to a meeting.
Yeah.
And then finally to the bottom, I'm sorry, it's not actually, no, I have to say there's not a companion. That's right. There's not a companion master plan item for town staff alignment. It did not appear on the radar screen of the master planning, unless I missed it. So it's our own goal. That's maybe the only one that's our own goal, which is town staff alignment. But there we are absolutely going to leverage Ryan and his initiative.
Right.
Work with him. So finally, no, not finally. Okay. Then we go still in connectivity and whatever is the IT. Right? And we agreed, I think we would elevate the working group to a committee status, and we would do the same thing, review the charter. I like, by the way, Steve, something in your TA report, and I really like this. I'm gonna use it. The regional IT, they have a chart, and the chart, I'm gonna get to it here. Travis, if you want to go, are you on the whole thing? You can go down
page?
to
It's in
way at the end of
it's in the
town
town administrator report.
Okay.
It's
Which is
number 11.
page 90 in the packet.
Go down to the bottom of this. It's page number. Where does the page show up?
Well, I'm in this part.
You go down
part of
all
the
the way
study
down
is
to
it?
the report.
Okay.
Go, the bottom of the regional IT report.
It's not
That
the
one, that one,
MPC.
right
Blue
there.
one?
105.
Okay, page
The
105,
MMPC.
IT management maturity model,
Yeah,
maturity
right.
now model.
Yeah, I
Oh,
like
sure.
that as a graphic.
Oh,
So keep,
all right, hold on.
you gotta go
Getting there.
past that.
He's almost there. He's going, yeah.
Sorry,
No, that's okay, my fault. I just realized I was just,
it's a longer report than that.
Here it is. That's-
yeah, it's in there, so it's at the bottom.
That?
We did that one. Yeah, keep going all the way down.
Okay. So,
It's got.
It's a graphic.
a
You can't
step
miss it. It's a step.
graphic
Yeah, next,
with
keep
a-
going.
Oh, this one.
voice.
Right there, that's it.
IT management
Yeah,
maturity.
so I like that because, you know, and I will use it for my own purposes too. But at the far left, reactive, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right? You have a problem, somebody helps you. Then there's efficient, which we're kind of edging towards systemic approach. But really, we want to be moving more to the right, right? Be
Yeah.
proactive, be aligned, be strategic. So I think this is actually a nice little thing to maybe start the charter for this,
Yeah.
IT committee. But the point, I guess, is we need to, I think Nathan brought it up, right? We can't just have a working group. We got to really make a committee, and we really have to think about resourcing the committee and getting them to, and I know Ryan will be at the head of the class here in terms of pushing us in that direction. So anyhow, so that, let me go back to the, let's go back to the,
And so this was Collins.
no, it's
No,
North
this is
Shore.
the MAPC.
Oh, this is MAPC. Yeah, okay. That's right.
I mean,
And-
they were making Steve included it for a different point, which is the collaborative was doing all these things,
Yeah,
but,
well,
which was interesting. They're actually using Danvers as the base, and then other people were sort of glomming on top, which is another, but I don't want to get sidetracked. Okay, so that's,
that's in their area.
Connectivity and access.
yeah, so connectivity and access. So
Wow.
we've got 1, 2, 3,
And then you
4,
need the,
5. We actually have 5
Yeah,
big
so-
initiatives in there.
yeah, that one you haven't
Right.
mentioned.
So I haven't
Okay.
got there yet.
Okay.
Right. So we've got IT. So in connectivity and access, which seems like a innocuous sounding title, we have onboarding number 1. We have meeting with the all the other boards annually 2. We have town staff alignment. We have an IT committee, and we have a master plan implementation committee. So, there's 5 big things in that one section.
One for each of us.
One for each of us. And then finally, under Carlisle character, we have hire a town planner, which if we do our job right, we'll be able to tick that box off pretty quick, right? What's the timing of it?
Resume is due September 1st.
Okay, there you go. We're gonna be ahead of the game. All right. And then land use, this is really for you, Kate, right? I mean, you already have the plan, so what do you want to do with the plan as it
What do you mean, the
relates-
housing production
Yeah.
plan?
Well,
This is different. This is
no,
land.
this is different. I have now an inventory of developable town land.
Okay,
And I think we also need to have a list of our needs. So for instance, if we do a new public safety building, we're gonna need another piece of land if it doesn't fit on one of these. So we need to do like the open space and recreation plan, where they actually take the parcels that they have, the parcels they know that are out there, and they, prioritize them, and we have to have a prioritized list, and we have to have a list of our needs, and we should be able to go out with an RFP, like at the drop of a dime, and be able to do this. And so be ready. Again, it's not being reactive, but being proactive and strategic. And I've been working on, so I've got some of the basics done, but I need some help to get finished.
so we have 11, as I said, 11 bolded, goals in bold, right? But if you peel off hiring people, with town planner is one, and forming committees, which is an IT committee, implementation committee, and of course now we just did the ESC. Like, there are 4 that we can kind of leverage by getting things going. And then the remaining, I don't know, 7 are pretty substantive where we have to do. So that's kind of where I got. I took it, and I didn't feel like we could cut any. Based on our discussion, they all deserved a spot on the list. So,
Well, could we now revisit some of these and say some are longer term goals?
Sure.
and obviously
we're gonna have to prioritize.
we haven't done that part of the process. So clearly some of them we've already ticked off, right? So those were short-term goals, and we got, some are going to take longer, and some, yeah.
Well, you say we ticked them off, and I said we tick them off, but like the ESC.
Yeah.
We tick them off, we launch them, but we should be reminding ourselves always, like, okay,
Yeah.
here's what we want
Yeah.
them to do, and that's why we.
Yeah.
It really dovetails well into the master plan. I think it's great, David, what you did. I guess the aspect of it is we've hired a new town administrator, and Ryan's on tonight, and I'm really going to be curious what he thinks of this, but I think some of what he's judged by is these goals and how he is able to achieve them. And so I think, I'd really like to get his input on some of these, because he has some ideas of specific things he wants to do, which I think is great. whereas we may have some more broad reaching goals that he can help with, but maybe not be judged directly based on, you know, because ultimately we have to prioritize. I mean, he's the administrator, but we have to prioritize where he's focusing his time. So I don't know. I agree. That's
yeah. And he's, you know, he said that
he's
not to
on.
put words in his mouth,
Yeah,
but
but he's
yeah,
got
Ryan, I
COVID.
don't, maybe you want to
Didn't ask him
respond.
to do anything,
Yeah.
The way he's feeling.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked at the goal session and during my initial interview about how my goals align with your goals, as they should. And I've done some of these things before. So looking at this, my only question would be timeframes. So hiring the staff and creating the structure for the budget process, et cetera, is going to take into the upcoming special town meeting, and then however long it takes to hire folks, although we're trying to speed that up. So then it's what are the expectations for finished products for any one of these items? So in previous work, I've done a lot of this financial modeling that you're talking about, but it's really going to depend on finance committee input and what you do for a budget process and what do you want to move towards. So in my mind, it would be in 1 to 3 years, you have this type of product that you're working on. Same thing with IT. So make these improvements over time incrementally. So all of them look good as long as I can work and nest my goals to flush out what your expectations are for each of them, because I do believe that a couple of these goals will also be your goals next year, just as to borrow David's model, a more mature version of the goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's ambitious, but you know, it's good that we're tackling big things. I think the biggest thing is going to be getting buy-in from the community, because, you know, it's great. We all love to do all these things and we have a vision of where we may want Carlisle to go, but now you got to pay for it. You got to get the support to do all these things. And I think that's where the rubber's going to meet the road on our whole agenda here, our whole goal setting of what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these things I feel are more of an upfront investment that we can then ease back from once we get some of the work done, you know. But we need to get over that hump.
Well, you launch people to do work on things. Right?
Yeah. So, but in
Or
terms of talking to the FinCom, though, I think we need to let them know that this is not necessarily going to be ongoing operational budget item. You know, some of the funding we might want to be asking for will be one time, or maybe 2 year, or, you know, maybe for the longer things, it might be 3 years, but at that, that they shouldn't, you know, freak out because, you know, suddenly we're asking more for operating expenses in town hall. But I think we also should be looking at our town hall expenditures and seeing how we can redistribute some of the funds we already have. Some of the funds that are still being spent on
And
things
that's
that we
where
don't need to be
Ryan-
spending them on, or
Ryan-
beg your pardon?
Ryan.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is the nice thing about having somebody new come in and having them take a fresh look at this.
Well, so speaking of somebody new coming on, and Travis is newer than me, but I'm in my first term, right? So I'm only now appreciating, I've spent a lot of time on boards and committees in this town, so I know how things work, but I'm only now really beginning to appreciate the interconnectivity of the select board with all these other boards. And because the other ones I was on were sort of mission driven, like you do this with school, and this now, when you overlay the master plan goals and all this stuff, I'm beginning to get that appreciation. And I would say, from just looking at this now, just looking back, I haven't looked at it for a week, right? Just to look at it again fresh. There's a bunch of things that are process, right? Like, let's do better. Let's meet with the boards better. Let's make sure we give them all a charge. Let's make sure we have onboarding. Let's make sure that we set up these charters the right way. I mean, we should be always doing that. So it's on us to do that and convey to these boards, hey, you need also you need a strategic mission. You need to be strategic in what you do, not just tactical, right? And so and then there's separately some things that are going to cost money, like what you're talking about, that we maybe before didn't tackle, like sustainability or stewardship. Like there's things now, because of the world, we need to do better. We need to do more and spend more, or upgrading our physical
regionalization.
Yeah, or save money, right? So again, just to kind of conceptualize, the first things that the structural strategic, we should just be, that's really our mission, to set the tone that we do that. And then the second piece could be episodic, may not be all this year, okay, but the first one, maybe not saying it as clearly as I could, but that to me should be our focus. Like, set it up right, let's set it up right.
And based on that, David, I do think for me, or evaluating these, that looking at the charters and really evaluating all the committees, like really bumps up from us to the biggest priority, because you got to know what we're dealing with, right?
Exactly. Do a good job at that, then
it all follows from there.
Yeah.
They are then, empowered and maybe rejuvenated.
Right.
To tackle
a lot of them, may not be doing work that's necessary anymore, and they would be better off. And then that's not good for their morale. But exactly. So that's why I would say one of our.
Well, one example of that, and I can speak on that personally because I spent 9 years on FinCom. FinCom spends like 75% of its time like delving into minutiae with departments. And and I'm sure Ryan, certainly town governance pointed to this, and I'm sure Ryan would like this. Let the pros do, limit that.
Yes.
We have the same old discussion about how many pencils to order like every year. Like, okay, let's not do that. Let's go up a level and let's do some big thing.
I actually did attend the meeting of the governance with the two representatives of FinCom, and that's, I think, basically the crux of the thing, and trying to get them to understand that really the town administrator should be doing that, with getting in that, doing that and presenting it to them. And so I think we have broad agreement on that, but I think there's still a little trepidation about,
making a change.
Yes,
and
making
right.
change and
less
with this
control.
information, get that to them in time, and what do they do with it afterwards? And so the process is though working. I mean, I think we'll get there.
Good.
And I do think it will be absolutely helped by having Ryan actually on the ground in the building, and talking to FinCom himself, and having him explain how he would like to see the process work, and him talking also to Kim. There's time. We need some time, but I think I don't know if we have enough time though. My worry is, do we have enough time before the October town meeting for the governance to get to work through all that? That's my big worry. Because we gave them a huge job, even extending it to October. I'm not sure.
But they need to, it's up to them. We're going to be going to a multi-week period now. More in articles, right? They're going to come up with...
but the last meeting they had got canceled because their quorum didn't show up. The meeting before that,
if they only have one, like that says, clerk will be the appointed position. They can always roll the rest of them to the spring, right? They don't have to complete. Why the push to make sure everything gets into the flow?
Well, because
we had committed to that. That's what they really wanted, right? But it may be right if we don't want to move ahead on something that they're not, hasn't worked through and gotten.
On the other hand, I think fatigue is set in. Of course,
Right.
that and on summer vacation schedules hasn't helped. So it's been.
Yeah.
Has Rebecca committed? Is she still the chair?
Yeah.
Is she committed to coming in next month?
I sent her what you sent me, and I have not had a response.
Reply. Okay. Because what we've set up, for the 29th is a joint meeting with FinCom, but we're getting ahead of ourselves because that draft agenda is in the packet and it's
which I
part
don't
of
have.
Steve's
What do you wanna
report.
do?
So let's, are we ready to, put a motion on the floor to accept these goals?
And these would be our, when we
All
say
right.
our goals, our goals.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2023 select board goals and objectives as presented on August 9th, 2022 in the document attached to the packet.
I second,
Labeled SDM version 80322.
I second the motion.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Excellent. Well, and I want to say, I think this has been a very good process and very thoughtful and a good step up from what we have done in the past. I'm looking forward to.
So
all
we
of us.
should, maybe this is directed at Jen, but we should probably have some printed, we should like keep this top of mind, like as a guideline, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have it for meetings and maybe
I'll get you a laminated
laminate
copy.
a couple.
There you go.
Why don't you make it into a placemat and he can put
Sure.
it on his table at home? Yeah.
All right.
So that's great though. Thank,
Tattoo it to Ryan's forehead.
anyway, and thank you, David, for your work on this in particular. All right. Yeah, so let's move on to the ratifying the police contract, which is
Still haven't had the rest of
yeah,
our
number 10.
day report.
It's not, well, he doesn't have to. stay on.
Pardon?
Brian's not, doesn't want to stay on.
If he's not feeling well.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you. Ryan, feel free to get off the Zoom and take care of yourself. These last two things are, not heavy items, but certainly stay if you feel like it, but you don't need to, is what we're saying. If you'd like to take the rest of the night, what's left of it.
I'm here and listening, and happy to participate. I'll probably take the video off and just kind of lay on the
Okay.
table. Be good to go.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. I hope you feel better too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want it. Don't bring it to me.
Yeah. All right. So we're going on to number 10, the police union contract, which is, for those of you that are looking at it in your packet, it's item 53, page 53. And so there's a motion here, and then we have a copy of the entire proposed police settlement for fiscal year 23 to 25. Steve, do you want to give us a
Sure.
brief overview?
So I did put in the packet the elements of the tentative agreement and what were really the changes that would be included in the new agreement with the police union. So we did agree to an annual townwide COLA. So their wages would go up by an annual townwide COLA. We would give the non-union with a minimum or a floor of 2.25% for FY24 and FY25. As you recall, we already did 2.25 for all the non-union. Longevity would increase by 2% in FY23, $200 in FY24 and 25. The night differential the differentials would increase in FY23. The midnight differential would go from 7 to 8%. The night differential in FY24 would go from 7 to 8%. And in also FY24, the midnight differential would go from 8 to 9%. A new stipend for supervisor of detectives was agreed to at $269 a year, and all of the stipends would increase by $25 a year in FY23, 24, and 25. The detail rate would increase to $62 for FY23 and $64 in 24. Juneteenth would be added to the lists of holidays observed. We also agreed that the increase of number of holidays that officers could receive compensatory time off would increase to 6 in FY23, 7 in FY24, providing the department is at full staffing and no officers are on 111F. Otherwise, the chief has discretion to limit the number of holidays to no less than 5. And the impact of the settlement in FY23, the current year, the cost of settlement was $28,000, which equates to 2.7% increase. In FY24 was a cost of $25,554 for an increase of 2.4%. And in FY25, the cost is $25,932 for an increase of 2.39%. So the contract in front of you, what took us so long to get to you is we wanted to make sure all the pay tables and all those kind of things were correct. So between the chief's administrative assistant, Kelly, the town accountant, myself, and then obviously the police union president, we finally finalized this. So it took a while to get it resolved. I know this had started long before I started, but we were able, I think, to meet the goals that we started out with.
I just want to clarify one thing. That is the fiscal impacts of 24 and 25.
Yeah.
They include the 2.25% COLA.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it could be more
Could be more.
because
Correct.
that's the minimum increase that it will be.
Correct.
So I move to ratify the contract agreement between the town of Carlisle Police Union and Local 201 for July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions, comments?
I'm glad it's settled.
Yes, thank you,
It- it-
Steve.
Things I didn't
was-
want undone before I left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a long, and unfortunately, having the transition in the middle of it did not help anything.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, it was a very successful negotiation. I hope the police will feel as well. Well, I mean, they do. I mean, but what I mean is that by the end of the contract, I hope they will continue to feel that this was really a good deal for them.
Any other comments? All right. Yeah, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. And so now we will each of us be signing it?
Yes.
Okay. We'll do that, and then we can go on with the town administrator's report once we've done that.
Poor town administrator's report's been ripped to shreds.
A little disjointed, but that's okay.
I also just want to thank you, Steve, for bringing this to conclusion, and also Kate, you and
Victor.
you and Victor, yeah, for
Victor
your
was-
work on moving this along. So thank you. All right, well, let's go ahead and go to your report.
Hey, well, we want to talk a little about the Clark Room
Yes.
furniture. We had kind of touched on some of this
Right.
earlier, but as you recall, we awarded a purchase agreement to upgrade the audio visual with Minuteman Network in the amount of about $33,000. Not sure when that's going to get delivered. I'm sure it's whole supply chain thing is going on. And as we've talked about, new meeting tables that can be multifunctional and moved around have been ordered as well. Be easier for the furniture to be moved for COA activities, and just basically gives us way more flexibility with this room. Historic Society would like the display case behind me, the one with all the weights and measures in it. Have a couple choices. One is to declare the display surplus and not needed by the town, and then donate it to the Historic Society, or loan the collection to the society for an undetermined length of time. Be my recommendation just to donate to them, because I don't know what we would do if we got it back.
To be returned.
So in regard to this table, because there's been a lot of talk about this table recently, we determined, and I had thought about it, but I never measured it. But thanks to Joan Ingersoll, she actually had this table measured, and it will fit in the healed room upstairs. And in fact, because of its size, larger meetings could be held in the healed room, and I think it's really fitting, because Benjamin Franklin Heald was a selectman. He was a school committee member. He was a state representative. He was a major in the militia. So it's a good place for this table to be, and it'll be used every day. There's no question about it. And as we learned, opera funding will be also used in this room for chairs and new flooring. So my recommendation will be to declare this display case behind me surplus and donate it to the Carlisle Historic Society.
I move we accept Steve's recommendation to declare those things surplus.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now, if and when we get new chairs, these will need to be disposed of as well. And I'm hoping we could sell them or dispose of them.
Going to be Ryan's problem.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Sorry, buddy.
I hope they don't just go to the dump is what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm sure we can find a use for
I'm
it.
sure we can find some
An
sucker. I mean,
environmental-
somebody-
School might take them.
An
School might take
environmentally
them.
sustainable way.
The church might take them.
That's
They got
it's
crappy
kind of
chairs.
a municipal website where you can post it and other municipalities may
Yeah.
pick it up and things like that.
FRS has these crappy chairs. They might.
Ryan and I have met a couple times at length to start preparing for the transition. And we're going to keep doing that until his start date. I drafted an ad for the assistant town administrator. Ryan has looked at it. I think we need to punch it up and maybe make it less wordy. I'm very confident with my conversation with Ryan. He's going to hit the ground running, and it's going to be a very smooth transition. My plan is to finish up on Friday the 19th, and if he wants me to, if he come in on the 22nd or whatever, if he needs me, I'll be glad to do that. And just like I said before, it's been a real pleasure. Been a lot of fun actually, and now I can sleep a little later after the 19th.
Can act like you're retired again.
Yeah, my second retirement. It's like
Yeah.
In terms of the town planner position, I think I mentioned this earlier, the application deadline is September 1st. So that has been posted in several places. On July 25th, Bill Rizzo, Sylvia Willard, and myself went out and looked at the Greeno barn with a couple DPW guys who opened up it for us with some crowbars. It's pretty evident to me it really needs to come down. Part of a discussion that Barney and David have had is maybe we go to special town meeting in October and try to get the funds. It's really kind of difficult to estimate how much it is. I did find kind of a demolition calculator on the internet, and if I applied, kind of their numbers based on the square footage, I come up with about $140,000. But to put that in perspective, we just opened bids for an ADA ramp for the police station, and the low bid was $101,000 just for a ramp.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not super confident about $140,000. Plus, there may be some, environmental remediation. There may, it's a tight site in terms of wetlands and all those type of things. So, we may want to bump it up a bit higher than 140,000.
We have it on the agenda to discuss with FinCom next week.
Correct. The only other thing I think that's worth mentioning is the graffiti. There was some racist graffiti on there. Luckily, when the DPW guys pulled off some of the plywood so we could go in, flipped it around so the racist.
You just gave a blank canvas to the next taggers.
Exactly. But also there's a pickup truck in there from vintage, I'm guessing 1970-ish, and some other little.
Give it to the DPW.
Swap shop.
They'll make it work.
Yeah.
And they'll make it run.
I don't know. So at any rate, I think I just wouldn't want to see the town wait till annual town meeting to deal with this
Yeah.
because
It's got to go.
definitely got to go. Right. Also to make you aware, the recreation department has moved to 97 School Street, the brick building, which will free up some space for town hall. I know Ryan's been thinking about how space can be reconfigured. Especially
Kelly looks so lonely up there.
ATA. Quiet. She's a count. She likes quiet,
Yeah.
She said she missed Holly.
All right,
Yeah.
well, you can make it noisy for her. That's not okay. And then in terms of the castle playground, it's pretty much fully disassembled.
Yeah.
Probably about a couple hours of work left before the DPW can pull out the last posts. Volunteers are gonna do that Saturday. And DPW will jackhammer the concrete. They're also thinking about disassembling the slide components and perhaps putting them out on somewhere in Bantadeo. So,
Yeah.
that's my report.
Thank you.
All right. Any comments or questions?
On the Greeno barn, what's our next step on that? We had a meeting about it before, but,
Yeah.
I've forgotten if we.
Take a look at our draft agenda. I reached out to Lynn Lipinski, the chair of the finance committee, and we are going to have for our next meeting on the 29th. So if you go down to page 110, if you are using the packet number, okay.
The right packet.
We've set up a joint meeting with the FinCom, and Lynn just confirmed earlier that they can have a quorum to meet us there. So it's discussing the town meeting warrant articles, and one piece of that is the Greeno barn demolition funding. And so I reviewed with her kind of the basics that Steve had reported to us. So they're going to be prepared. It may be something that has to come out of free cash. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, the big question is what number to use. But
Right.
This calculator I used, because it's kind of it's kind of a generic thing, doesn't take into account prevailing wage rates that Massachusetts has to pay and all that. So
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would
double
say
it too.
and the thing is, if you don't spend the whole appropriation, it'll go back to free
Right.
cash eventually.
Right.
anyway,
So it may be an up to
But
amount.
somebody has to, that's something that we would want to present a case at the town meeting. So somebody has to take the lead. Is that
Yeah.
Conscom or us, or it's not FinCom to do, right?
I think it should.
Well, the oddity is that it's on conservation land, but the select board owns the building.
Right, if we own the
Right, so
building,
it's-
then we
it's
should.
us. It's definitely us. And
We gotta take pictures.
And we were told to get rid of it,
a while back.
well, before I was elected, which is 5 years ago. So
2016, there was,
It's your
I think,
fault.
was an
It's your
effort
fault.
to do
2016,
something. Yeah.
and it just didn't get done.
Okay,
Right.
And
all right, so I think I agree. We should move more swiftly rather than.
But anyway, to get back to your question, so this is our plan, moving forward, and with the idea that we will have it on as a warrant article in October.
Right.
So that brings us to the, looking at this draft agenda. So, we may or may not have the executive session depending on whether the two lawyers can work something out. So that's to be confirmed. Then we have the joint meeting with the finance committee. And so Kate, this is where we're,
yeah,
the governance task force. I don't know where they are, and I don't know if you know where they are on actually having concrete articles, but that's really what we need to have, because today is the opening of the warrant,
well,
and it's
they're-
closing on
they're
September
finished
13th.
with the TA article.
Okay.
That,
And finished meaning it's gone through town council review as well, or?
so.
Yeah.
And they have a clean copy. They're ready.
Okay.
They're more or less, and I think it was already more or less ready
Okay,
in the spring anyway. So,
okay.
um,
Now, has there been any interaction with Ryan on this?
not yet. I was
Okay.
hoping to go through it with him.
With him? Okay.
I'm meeting with him on the 17th, but if that's too late, I can try to,
No, because the
figured-
17th of this month.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
okay,
thought that
because
would
then
be
we
the
got
time
the
to bring him
29th.
up to speed on
Yeah,
that,
okay,
rather than bother him beforehand.
yeah, okay.
So,
And then the elected town clerk, so we need to figure out,
this
What?
is new news to me.
yeah,
Because we're the ones that drafted that article to start
Initially,
with,
right.
and asked them to just, if they thought it was a good idea to bring it forward.
yeah,
And I don't think they touched it, but so to put it, I don't know when that discussion happened about putting it on the ballot.
right,
Because I've been to the past 3 meetings or 2 meetings or whatever, however many, that they've had. And I didn't hear that. So this is new.
yeah,
Maybe it hasn't been discussed yet. Maybe it was discussed at a prior meeting that I hadn't been to. So I
Okay.
will clarify that.
And do we know for sure that it's not required that it,
I don't think so.
On the
right?
ballot?
I just making a note to talk to Tom Harrington about it.
okay.
Yeah,
Would you-
why
yeah.
would be the, what would be the interest in making it more complicated?
I mean, you know, if you had a charter, I could understand it because it'd be
Right.
a change in the charter, but
Right.
there's no charter, so I don't know.
So Kate, are
If
you,
I remember correctly, sorry to interrupt, David, but just that, my recollection is that there were two different ways we could approach this. And the way that was recommended the last time was, trying to remember what
is there a
that
chief
involved,
attorney on the phone?
but, I don't think so, no. No, Jen Gibbons, you're looking at, oh,
Jeannie.
anyway.
No, that's
Oh,
Jeannie
it's Jeannie
Janesco.
Janesco, yeah. Anyway, there are two different ways to handle this, and the way town council had recommended it for this last time did not require any ballot action. So that'd be great if you could confirm that.
I
Yeah.
suspect it might be Brian Cruz who's bringing that up.
And then the third one is the one that really still needs
So
work,
the
which
third
is
one,
about the,
yes, which
budget.
is about the budgeting
yeah,
and
okay.
the process and the fact that, you know, this board, for instance, has no concept of what the town hall budget is. We've never, ever seen it. And, you know, I guess I'm like, David, I'm like you from coming from school committee. It was the staff and the chief executive who makes the budget, it's the school committee's budget, but they don't draft it. They don't get, you know, mostly into the weeds. It's drafted by the staff and
Yeah.
brought to them, explained to them.
Right.
And then we did say, well, gee, do you really need that many FTEs here or whatever?
Right.
But that's never happened.
We
at
haven't
this
had
table
that here,
For the-
right?
for the town hall.
Yeah.
And
Oh, but I think on
yeah, but the idea is but FinCom is not us. And then it gets complicated and funny about who's asking whom for which advice and when.
But I guess I'm losing the thread here, Kate. I thought the governance task force was moving along, have the town administrator.
Yes, they are.
develop.
They
So
are.
what does that have to do with your?
Well, what I'm saying is that
Well, that
That-
town administrator and the finance, what that proposed budget would come to the select board
Oh,
to look at, and as well as to the FinCom, but that the how that budget represents town priorities, it should be our
Right.
discussion, and
Right.
how it's gonna,
instead of each department going one
No,
at
no,
a
no.
time to
Right.
FinCom.
I
Yeah.
agree, but I think that's my sense is that's a bridge too far for the fall. Like, that's like a lot of steps we still have to.
It's-
We got a
no.
new TA, new process. I hate to be overly prescriptive.
It's not. In fact, it just says that the TA will be the one who makes the town hall budget for all the departments, who coordinates all the departments. It is like one town hall budget instead of each individual budget that goes to FinCom one at a time. And where then they are not incentivized to work together as a team. They're more incentivized to work against each other to fight over resources.
Okay.
but anyway, in preparation for this meeting, are you comfortable taking the lead as a select board member and the liaison to that group to get some more clarity from Rebecca?
I will
Okay.
call her tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, I emailed her,
Yeah.
and I asked her to call me. Cause
Yeah.
I know she's got a very busy schedule. She's a, single mom and, she's
Got a
got a
full-time
job,
job,
full-time
right?
job, and she's doing this. So I thought at
Okay.
her convenience, she could call, would be better,
Yeah.
but I haven't heard from her. So
Let me just add that, assuming she is available to participate, and we've already put her right after FinCom, I think FinCom needs to stick around for that.
Well,
we
there are
have
two
her
things.
during
Here,
FinCom, in
well,
fact.
let me clarify this then. So she's the warrant articles
Oh, I see what you're
conversation is under the joint meeting. A question is whether the governance task force, whether she just wants to come and present the articles or whether she needs her group there also as part of the joint meeting.
Oh, I don't know that.
I don't-
No, I don't think that. I guess.
Okay,
no,
but
you're
then
right.
the second thing though, item number 3 on this proposed agenda is that
That's the whole
the
report.
governance
That's
task
different.
force report, which
Yes.
if that's not going to be ready, then we'll take that off
Okay.
entirely. And so
Well, their
that was
next
the
meet-
other piece of
Our
what
next
you're,
meeting, assuming they get their quorum,
yeah.
is Thursday at 9:30.
Okay, and that's-
You're in that. You go.
And I'm
to
going
that.
back.
Okay, so anyway, before we can
Okay.
finalize this, we'll get an answer
Yeah.
back. Okay.
But in terms
Um,
of what you were just saying, Kate, again, our job in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is to decide which articles are going to go.
Got it. Yeah.
So it's okay. I mean, I hear what you're saying. And I think that's probably at the end the right answer. But to say to a new TA, by the way, we're changing everything about the way we do budgeting and you're now in charge. I don't see it being practical. I'm saying this to you so you can maybe talk to if they have their meeting on Thursday.
I want to talk to Ryan because he may prefer it this way.
He may, no,
He may-
honestly,
he may be doing it
He may be
that way
doing-
now.
he
I
may
don't know.
prefer it this way.
Yeah.
But I'm just, honestly, I don't care, okay, what he prefers. Because at the end, we can get there. I'm saying you take a brand new TA who's new to all the departments and you have a FinCom, and whether you like them or don't like them, that's what they do. They spend time retailing all these things with everybody, with Chief Fisher and Brian and this guy and that guy and that. And you're saying, oh, we're gonna sweep that away, take the brand new guy, plug him in and say, go at it. Now, maybe, it works out great because it's a clean sheet of paper, but maybe you have chaos. I just don't think, in my view, it makes sense to just jump right to that right now. I
Most
just don't.
towns don't do it the way we do it. Most towns do it the way that's
We
being
can get
proposed,
there. I'm
which
not
is-
saying don't get there. I'm saying
Yeah.
get there in a stepwise fashion. Don't put all the eggs, scramble them up and say, okay.
I think we need the Band-Aid approach. personally. I think
Well-
you rip it off, let everybody scream for a minute.
Right,
and
so
then-
that we
then you're
just-
done.
So it should be an interesting discussion.
Yeah. Any comment you want to add to this discussion,
No, I
Travis?
think we should talk about that before we do.
Yeah.
Right, so it should be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I do see here, there's a third bullet about Community Preservation Committee projects, CPC proposals. Have we gotten any word from the CPC committee that there's anybody coming forward?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, they're meeting, I'm
Let
going,
anybody know that they're looking for proposals?
well, that is supposed to have happened. We ha-
Chair of
Okay.
the Housing Trust.
Yeah, Drew was away on vacation and he said to me he had some catch up to do, but there is a meeting Thursday night. So I will, and I'm the liaison, so I will have more information on that.
I thought you were, no, you're not the liaison.
I'm sorry, I'm a
You are
member.
a
I'm the member. I'm a voting member.
voting member.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, and then a presentation on ranked choice voting, which is something that David has his contact would like to make a presentation
What ranked choice voting for?
in Massachusetts. For state races.
Well, actually, it's probably local. I mean,
I think it's local,
Yeah.
but you said, he presented, this is Marcellus Thorson. He's a young student. He's a CCHS student. He's very interested in government. And he volunteers and stuff. In fact, he's one of Simon's guys now. And he presented, and maybe even at the MGL, I can't remember, but at Concord or somebody presented.
my wife recalls someone presenting the select board.
And then what happens?
Well, the select, Concord had a warrant article to adopt ranked choice voting, but it's a special act of the legislature and it hasn't gone anywhere yet, as far as I know.
So I think at this point, he simply presents the concept.
Informational. Yeah.
We can decide if it seems too soon to put it on fall PM. But, let's get it on the radar screen and it's,
Okay, I mean, I have no.
it's a pretty interesting concept. I mean, actually, so. I think it in some ways has, we have very few contested elections, but it is an interesting idea. If you had, you know, 3 for 2 or whatever, which we sometimes have.
Yeah, 3 for 2 would be very interesting.
Right. You know,
Um,
anyway, I'll leave it to him to present, but, and I'm gonna work with him on some brevity, so we have time to discuss.
All right, okay,
I'm taking that.
all right. And then liaison reports. I just wanted to throw out an idea, which is I've been thinking maybe we need to either rotate, you know, maybe 2 of us per meeting, unless there's something urgent that, you know, you're the liaison and you're not really up to give a report, but that we just do a quick check, you know, you just do a quick report back on what's going on, or some way, or either that, or we take them off entirely, and then it's if you as a liaison want to give a report, then you have to be responsible for reaching out to.
Isn't that the way we do it now?
No, we typically have liaison reports on the agenda every single time,
So
and
I
sometimes
don't see
we
the
have them or
problem.
don't.
I know, but I don't see the problem of leaving it. It's a little bit like, you know, citizen input. You have that on every day and nobody, you know, comes up. I think if there's a slot there, if somebody wants to give a liaison report, well, they know they can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, today, in fact, I gave my liaison report while you're going over this agenda, right?
I mean, you worried, Barney, there's too few?
Well,
We don't
I'm
usually have
thinking,
very
I
much.
guess more, I don't know, I was thinking, okay, so we've all taken on these roles, but do we ever check back in to see where we are and have people connected at least with the chair? You know, and maybe anyway, I just wanted to throw it out there for
So
conversation.
you're saying
about-
maybe make it more mandatory that you should every few meetings give a report?
Yeah.
No, but so
Okay.
then you wouldn't take it off the agenda then.
No, I
Yeah,
meant, no, I meant.
Make it more,
More.
Yeah,
because right now, I know what happens. Like, yeah, I go to some meetings and if it's not that important. And then, and anyway, it's also a running out of gas. Because it's right.
Right, right.
Yeah, and it's not that important.
And
And-
we're usually late, so who wants to? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
bother on
Anyway, think about it. We don't
But
have. to
is it
make a
in your
decision.
mind, is liaison reporting to keep the rest of the select board informed or for the community at large to hear? Because they're all public meetings and if they're that
Yeah.
interested, they can always chime in, right? So.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking more it's for the rest of the select board. So if, you know, you have some sense of what is coming down the pike, or what the concern is of a particular committee, or if there's a role for the select board.
Well, in the liaison reports, if you chairs are having chair committee, I think that's something that could fit under that
Uh-huh.
rubric, right? And
Yeah.
that, because that's almost a better way than, you know, giving a, you know, blow by blow. Unless, for instance, you know, like I'm working with the governance committee right now, and there are things that are generic
Right.
to what we're working on us, so I need
Right.
to keep you guys
Well,
informed.
and to your point, in the course of 3 hours, we usually, the important stuff usually leaks out somehow. Anyway.
Right.
You know, but, well, then there's like the MFC, because, you know, we're not interested in knowing that, oh gee, today we did, you know, we decided that we're going to do I don't know, a new roof for well, I guess, well, no,
We can talk about all that stuff. I'm happy to share that. I mean, for me though, to bring to the select board, like Steve Bastek needs an office. That's one of the things. And
well,
so.
that's yes, that should go under liaison.
You know,
Yeah.
that's something that I think the new TA should know, or, you know,
Yeah.
to think about
Yeah.
as a, you know.
Well, again, that's a good example of something that I think this is also, again, I know at 10 o'clock, I don't want to get too deep in this, but you know, we should think about, and I know Ryan wants to interact more directly with Tim. We had pretty sporadic, you know, interaction, except for perhaps the chair. Direct, regular interaction between select board members and the TA would be helpful. So the TA should know that Steve wants an office because he's got to figure out where that lives, right?
I know that.
And I told Tim that on a couple of occasions.
No, but
There's
I
a
mean,
lot of doors that close for privacy in this building. That's a big problem.
but I mean,
Yeah.
that's an example of where we actually shouldn't, in my mind, put it on the liaison report. That's
Right,
good
it should-
information.
But
to
it's,
be
you
brought
figure
to
out
the
where
right
that should,
spot.
right, it
Yeah.
needs to
And
go.
that's a job we can take
Right,
on, right?
right.
But we in our precious time together, again, let's try to.
I know.
Yeah,
Yes.
Past 10 and
okay.
Yeah.
try and-
I
Well-
actually reprogrammed the entire town hall at one point. Nothing went,
Okay.
nowhere
Well,
to.
we don't have to
So-
talk about that.
All right, to be continued. We can figure this out in the future. Now, as I want to open it though to the other three of you, is there anything that you're seeing that we ought to consider for this agenda? We will not meet again the way the calendar works.
That's right. several weeks ago.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want to change that. That was something actually that had been raised.
Oh, wait, we're meeting on the 29th.
Right, that, but I meant after that, we meet on the 13th,
13th.
which is okay, yeah,
Fine,
and then
that's
the,
2 weeks later.
actually, I guess that works out
Except the warrant
okay.
closes, so this is the work is this.
When does the warrant close again?
On the
13th.
13th, so our first
that's-
meeting in
Ay, ay,
September,
ay, That seems
right?
awfully-
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, but that's just placed at, okay, so let's clarify, when we say that it closes, that's just the names, the titles.
we
of
have
the-
to
of
have the basic,
Okay,
yeah,
it's not the actual wording.
the language, right?
The only exception is if they're citizen petition articles. Then Data would have to turn them in with their 100 signatures and the
By
wording would
that
have to
time.
be, and the wording would have to be there.
Okay,
But for our side, I guess that's a good point you raise is to Barney's point. I think the real working session to me is
The
the
29th.
29th. So if you think of things, they should get on this agenda for discussion. We may push final approval of them to the following meeting, but
yes.
if we wait to even discuss them at the following meeting, we gotta act on them right away. So really, I agree with what Barney was implying. Let's come
Yeah, make
prepared.
sure we have everything we need
Right.
on the, to
Okay, 'cause
discuss about the
the
And that's
warrant-
town meeting. Oh, and also the one other thing to add is, Wayne Davis wants to talk at this meeting about the electronic voting on
Oh,
the
okay.
29th.
We better
He
make
said he didn't need to, he thought it would be 5 minutes. I think it's probably a little longer.
5 Wayne minutes.
Now, David.
Wayne's a friend.
Okay,
It's okay.
all right.
Travis had a question.
Yes,
No, no,
Travis.
no, I guess sure. When I
Travis.
look at the agenda and I think, gosh, what time is so precious, and I think, well, how did some of these things get on there? So like ranked choice voting, and I realize that's important to David, or you.
We can push it off. I was asked and we
And
we
if
had
it's
a
not gonna-
whole, if we don't have time, we can move it. It's okay.
But I'm not saying that because I think it's, irrelevant or shouldn't be on there. I'm just wondering how these
Something
things get
bumps it.
on there.
Well, somebody asks and we have a planning session period, we try to plan the meetings with what we have on our plate. And if we
Right.
don't have some,
Well, if Wayne wants to go speak, all these things are adding up, and I would think that those may be a little more priority, unless this was going to be a warrant article or
no,
something.
it's a fair point. It's a fair point. We can push
Yeah,
it off.
I would, if we could push that one off.
Okay.
Because our last warrant was sort of a disaster. We did not pay enough attention to it when we needed to, and I don't want to feel that, and we kept on passing over, well, we'll do it the next time, we'll do it the next time. This time, every time I want to actually look at it and talk about it and do it. Yes, I don't want to have happen. It's okay to make a mistake as long as you learn from it. If we don't, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
repeat the mistake.
And one of the things I would, and I'm sure that we can work this out with Ryan and Wayne, but I think we need to also lay out when we're gonna, what are we doing about the warrant book, right? Whether we're mailing a copy of the book or have a decision about that or a recommendation about that. And then the other is just the timing of when the book goes out, when we have the handbook, right?
Yes.
Those steps leading up
and
to
the
town
warrant.
meeting. Yeah.
The motions.
And the motions
The
handout.
motions last year
Right.
Were not also.
Right. They
Correct.
were not correct either. So, yeah. All right. Well, if something else you feel is important to put on the agenda for the 29th, please reach out to me or David at the moment. And in the long run, it would, be the town administrator. But since Steve's we're in transition here, You
Yeah,
know,
this is-
you can reach out to me or
This
David.
Transition period is really,
All right.
really tough.
We're done then, because we have reached the end of our agenda. So I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Any opposed? I know, Steve, you're opposed, but you don't get to vote. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And the meeting's adjourned.
Hey, all right, thank you.